To week 4 of the Washington & Lee football season. The Generals are looking to rebound after a disappointing loss to start their ODAC season, losing to Randolph-Macon by the score of 23-7. Today's task is not any easier as the Generals travel up I-81 to take on the Bridgewater College Eagles. Bridgewater is 2-1 overall on the season and 1-0 in the ODAC after defeating Guilford on the road last week by the score of 30-28. In that contest, the Bridgewater defense came up big with 3 interceptions in the win as the win came down to the wire. As I welcome in Neal Schaefer. Neal, last week we thought Washington & Lee would pick up in the ODAC where they left off. But unfortunately for the Generals, it seemed like the offense could not really kick it into gear. In fact, Washington & Lee's offense against Randolph-Macon had 156 yards in the first half and only 27 yards in the second half as Randolph-Macon controlled the football for all but 6 minutes and change in that second half.
And this wasn't an instance, Andy, of the Generals turning the ball over a lot. They did have 1 interception in the game. They didn't fumble the ball. There wasn't a ton of penalties holding them back. It was just a failure to execute against what proved to be a good Randolph-Macon team. But what was a hallmark of their team, their offense, over the last decade, essentially, of Scott Abel, has not been that so far this year and was particularly absent against Randolph-Macon. As you said, just failed to get into gear. And really, I mean, there's really nothing else to say. They did nothing against Randolph-Macon.
Well, as I mentioned, the task does not get any easier today as Washington & Lee has struggled on the road at Bridgewater. In fact, W&L is just 1-8 in its last 9 games played at Jobson Field and has not won there since a 35-34 victory during the 2010 season. If Washington & Lee is going to turn this season around, just like they did last year, they did drop the ODAC opener last season to Emory and Henry on the road. This time, home to Randolph-Macon, who may be the toughest competition in the ODAC, although there is some parity as you've seen the first few weeks of the season unfold. If Washington & Lee is going to turn it around, Neal, what do they have to do?
I think they need to run the ball better. I think one of the most alarming statistics, well, there are a few alarming statistics kind of all wrapped into one here. First and foremost, they're averaging just 251 yards per game rushing, which is down significantly from when the Generals have averaged right around 400 yards per game over the last few seasons. And they are averaging less than 5 yards per carry. The only 2 players on the team who get significant carries who are averaging over 5 yards per carry are Josh Brees and Drew Richardson. And that is just not good enough for a team that is expected to run the ball, about 80% of the time. This Generals team has not been excelling at what they are supposed to be good at.
One bright spot for the blue and white has been the defense. Washington & Lee's defense allowing just 15.7 points per game. That is number 1 in the ODAC. They also are allowing the fewest passing yards per game in the ODAC, just under 180 yards, and they are ranked 3rd in the number of rushing yards allowed per game, with a mark of only allowing 144.0 yards per game. In fact, Washington & Lee's defense has been why they've been in games thus far this season. Dickinson on the road, you can credit that win to the Generals' defense. Suwannee, obviously, they slowed them down, and despite the fact that the Generals' defense was on the field for 23-plus minutes in the second half, the defense fought Randolph-Macon very hard, but unfortunately unable to really slow down Trey Frederick and change the outcome of the game last week. The Generals will have to regroup today against a very talented Bridgewater College Eagles offense that is putting up nearly 350 yards of total offense per game, a very balanced attack, almost 183 yards per game on the ground, just over 163 yards per game on the air, and they have an experienced quarterback in Jay Scroggins, who on the season has thrown for 4 touchdown passes and is completing just under 50% of his passes. But the fact is that this is an entertainment sport, and you've got to protect your assets. Otherwise, you're in a position where you lose fan interest, and that means you lose dollar signs. And so for the NFL, when Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, keep naming other quarterbacks, are on the field, they make more money. Folks want to see the star quarterback out there. They don't want to see a second stringer, and it degrades the product. And so the NFL is taking whatever steps they can to ensure that star players are on the field to maximize both the product they're putting in front of the fans and to maximize their revenue, which not only means tickets, jerseys, concessions, TV contracts, you name it. It's a multifaceted business model, and that's a way they can protect it. Another way that they've been protecting the business model, or I should say enhancing the business model, is the introduction of a lot of new, fascinating, entertaining quarterbacks into the league. Young quarterbacks, Neil. There's been a number of them. Baker Mayfield taking over for the Cleveland Browns. Certainly Patrick Mahomes bursting onto the scene for the Kansas City Chiefs, taking over for Alex Smith, who was traded away to the Washington Redskins. Of all the young quarterbacks, who's caught your attention?
I think the conversation right now has to begin with Mahomes in Kansas City. He has just been phenomenal. Everyone talks about his huge arm, able to throw the length of the field essentially, and the velocity at which he throws balls. But he's a very mature quarterback. The game never seems too big for him. But the other quarterback that I absolutely love and cannot get enough of is Deshaun Watson. He hasn't been quite what this year he hasn't been quite what he was last year, but I think he has everything that a quarterback needs to have in order to be a championship caliber quarterback. I think the Texans got a steal when they drafted him. He's one of my very favorite players in the league, and I think it's unfortunate the Texans, don't have the talent around him, because I think he could do a lot with not very much. Unfortunately, the Texans have even less than not very much right now on offense.
I agree with you with Patrick Mahomes. He seems to be this generation's John Elway or Brett Favre, however you want to think about it. Exciting playmaking ability. On Monday night this week, the left-handed pass against the Broncos to lead the Chiefs down towards the ultimate victory. I think there are a lot of exciting quarterbacks. I mentioned Baker Mayfield earlier. The spark that he's injected into the Cleveland Browns offense can certainly be felt. And then I think you've got longer-term developmental projects like a Josh Rosen in Arizona, where he's got the talent. He doesn't, as you mentioned about Deshaun Watson, have the weapons around him quite yet. But if Arizona can add to Larry Fitzgerald, who's in the twilight of his career, certainly Josh Rosen can make all of the NFL throws. Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills showed a lot of excitement and moxie in leading the Bills to a victory on the road over the Vikings a couple of weeks ago, came down to earth a week ago. But, certainly it's exciting times because you're seeing this changing of the guard, although the guard doesn't seem to want to leave when you've got folks like Drew Brees and Tom Brady still playing great into their late 30s and early 40s.
Josh Rosen is a quarterback I really like coming out of college. He's smart. I think he has the physical tools. A lot of people think he may not have the athleticism or mobility to move around it well enough in the pocket, extend plays. But he's one I worry about also because I think he's in a really bad situation, forced into a starting role on a bad team, an organization that just never seems to have their complete act together 100%. I often wonder, Andy, how many quarterbacks have we seen who could have been superstars and were just drafted in the wrong situation? And I feel like Josh Rosen could be the downside of that. Well, I think Lamar Jackson could be the good side of that because I think he's in a perfect spot, a stable organization, a talented, smart player who's going to be given a chance to sit behind Joe Flacco for a couple of years. If not, who knows? Flacco may reestablish himself. Maybe Jackson's traded or one of them's traded. But I think he's in a good spot to succeed because of a strong organization, and he's not rushed onto the field.
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Flacco certainly not going quietly into the night. The Ravens currently sit at 3-1. They take on the Cleveland Browns tomorrow at 1 p.m. The Browns at 2-1. Some other exciting games this weekend in the NFL, and one that caught my attention is the Jacksonville-Kansas City matchup. Jacksonville arguably has one of the best defenses in the AFC. We've already spoken about Pat Mahomes, and just to mention some of the weapons around him with Tyreek Hill, as well as others that can really make that Kansas City Chiefs offense so dynamic. So talk about that defense versus offense matchup.
Well, this is the Tyreek Hill Jalen Ramsey matchup is going to be the one to watch all day, and I think it's going to be really fascinating to see if the Jaguars defense, they have talent and speed on all three phases of that defense, if they're going to be able to slow down Mahomes, and just the speed of that Chiefs defense is a thing to behold. And it'll be a very interesting matchup. Andy, I'd love to know what you think, though, about the other side of the matchup. Fournette is out. You got Yeldon stepping up, though he is questionable. He was questionable at least midweek, so he's fighting through some injuries. And the Chiefs have struggled on defense some this year, even though they're undefeated. Do you think this could be the week where they might be able to get a little exposed by a good team?
I think certainly this is their toughest matchup of the season. But typically when you play good opponents, you rise to the occasion. I expect this to be a back-and-forth ball game. I think Blake Bortles is going to have a big game for Jacksonville as well on the other side to attempt to match some of the magical throwing ability of Pat Mahomes. You are listening to Generals Game Day on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. You'll notice one voice is missing, Jim Plantholt, normally with us, particularly when we're approaching tailgating with Jim Plantholt, but he's out of the office right now. His wife is in the last stages of pregnancy, so very exciting for Jim. We've all got our fingers crossed for him, and hopefully we'll have some good news to share with you soon. But filling in this week for Tailgating with Jim Plantholt will be Devin Davidson, and so that's coming up a little bit later on. But right now, it's time for us to kick it across the studio to Jeremy Franklin to break down the matchup between Washington and Lee and Bridgewater that comes your way at 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Andy. This is Generals Game Day on WLUR. I'm Jeremy Franklin. Joining me are Ben Greer and Colin Whitmore. And guys, let's talk.
They're going 3 and out, and when they can't have sustained drives, it's really it makes life difficult for the Generals on both ends, and made life a lot easier for the Yellow Jackets. So, not something we're accustomed to seeing, and hopefully don't have to see it anytime soon.
And Colin, the overall numbers for Josh Brees are solid. 19 carries, 125 yards. Most of that coming, of course, in the first half. But the rest of the team, 18 rushes, 19 yards. The Generals cannot be a one-man show.
No, and when you do have somewhat of a one-dimensional offense and that you're relying on running the ball, you've got to find other guys that are going to be able to do something there. And in the second half, the offense was just totally stagnant, totally stymied by that Randolph-Macon defense. So I think that this week in preparation for Bridgewater, they're going to have to find something. Bridgewater's going to know that we're going to run the ball, obviously. So they're going to have to find some guy, some system that's going to allow them to
improve on offense, because they've had 2 rough games so far. They slugged one out against Dickinson, even though things were not going very well on that side of the football. Looked great all around against Sewanee, but then back down to earth against Randolph-Macon. Is there a magic potion that would fix things for the Generals offense?
I think there's no necessarily magic potion. I think the big thing, like we mentioned, Brees is going to get his numbers, and that's not something you have to worry about. So I think establishing other guys early is the best way to do it, even as trying to establish the pass a little bit early, just to make the defense think a little bit, because, this Generals offense, if it's one-dimensional, it's not going to have sustained success. So I think trying to establish guys like Colin Sherman and Drew Richardson running early is just absolutely crucial to, on the first couple drives, to establish that there's more than one threat on this offense.
Yeah, and last season against Bridgewater, they were certainly able to do that. Brees and Sherman combined for 408 yards and 5 touchdowns, despite 9 fumbles in a rather rainy game. So I think if they can get Sherman involved a little bit, get Richardson on the board early, I think that'll open up the offense and allow that run game to become a lot more versatile. Maybe some more dynamic play calling, I think, will help as well to get that offense going.
I want to also talk about the mindset of Washington and Lee. It's just one game, but it's a game that was against the team you were picked with tied for first in the ODAC preseason coaches poll. No questioning the significance of this contest. The season, though, is not over for Washington and Lee. They lost their conference opener last year, came back and won the title, went back to the NCAA playoffs. How do you approach this knowing that there's a long way to go in this season? You had a tough loss, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure's definitely on the Generals in this game. And I think with that being said, you kind of got to play loose and you kind of got to go back to what makes you successful and trust your offense and trust what's giving you such great success over the years. And, it's you don't want to, this early in the season, call it a must-win game, but it really is for the Generals. After losing to Randolph-Macon, there's not who's proven to be a very good football team. They're probably not going to slip up much in ODAC play. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the Generals, and it's going to be a great early test for this coaching staff to see how they get this team prepared and how they can get them loose and just playing Generals football again.
And Colin, I think you're going to see the reverse mindset for Bridgewater, winning its ODAC opener at Guilford last Saturday, 30-28, 3 interceptions, including a crucial one by Dustin Green with 34 seconds left, a red zone pick to seal the win for the Eagles. They were picked dead last in the preseason coaches poll, and you've already seen head coach Mike Clark talk about playing with house money. Low expectations for Bridgewater, and they've got less, I guess, to play for in that sense coming in to face the Generals.
Yeah, that's sort of what makes this such an interesting matchup is that in part because Washington and Lee had such a stagnant second half against Randolph-Macon, it might be kind of hard to bounce back from that and get into the mindset of this is a game that you have to win. And on top of that, you're playing at a stadium that you haven't won at since 2010 against a team that was picked last in the ODAC, but is also coming off of sort of a momentum-boosting win. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. Bridgewater has more of a balanced attack. I think we'll see Washington and Lee come out ready to go. I think Coach LaRose will have them in the right mindset. But you can't overlook Bridgewater. They were picked last in the ODAC, but obviously they have momentum, and you got to take that. You got to take this game very seriously, even though it is early season.
Let's look again at Bridgewater and talk about the scouting report on the Eagles' offense. As Colin mentioned, balance on that side of the football, but they're not a dynamic offensive team, at least not based on the numbers. They're 7th in the ODAC in yards per game. The Generals are dead last right now with the 2 top performances so far. Tied for last in yards per pass play, 6th out of 8 teams in yards per rush play. And we haven't talked about the Generals' defense. Even against Randolph-Macon, they were solid. We're going to hear Coach LaRose in just a few minutes say that 23 points, you give up that in a modern-day college football game, you expect to have a chance to win. Washington and Lee, first in the conference in scoring defense, 2nd in overall yards allowed. Ben, if the Generals continue to maintain that level on the defensive side of the football, that unit's going to give WNL a chance to win every game this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you look at, obviously it was disappointing the time of possession for the Generals offense, but when you look at how much that Generals defense was on the field and how they held their own against a good Randolph-Macon offense, it says a lot about that group for sure. And yeah, this Bridgewater team, not as talented as an offense, not as physical of an offense as Randolph-Macon posed for sure. So I think you're going to see this defense continue to come out hungry, continue to prove themselves and kind of take this game on their shoulders in a way. Will Corey's had a fantastic season so far, averaging over 7 tackles a game. So I think it's going to be really up to the defense to set the tone for the Generals against not as talented of a Bridgewater offense.
Yeah, and currently the Generals are first in the ODAC in points allowed with about 15 a game. And the other thing to think about is how often that defense is on the field Saturday. They spent almost the entire second half on the field, and I think that shows incredible stamina on those players' part to give that kind of performance. And individual stats as well. You look at senior safety Thomas Freeland, 12 tackles, season high, so that's something to look out for. I think this defense is very solid, and I think they're going to create a lot of problems for this Bridgewater offense. Senior quarterback Jay Scroggins is had somewhat of a, I don't know, you could call it a lackluster performance in his last game, 13-27, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Stats aren't jumping off the page by any means. Their running game, about the same. Their running back ran for about 100 yards. I think that this Generals defense is going to be the X factor, and if that offense does come out a little bit slow, I think the defense is going to pick them up and give them the momentum they need.
Let's talk more about the home field advantage in this series because the numbers are just incredible, and every team plays better at home. That's true whether we're talking about ODAC football or Premier League soccer or middle school volleyball. There is an advantage to being on your home field, court, arena, whatever the case may be. But the last 7 games in this series take that just to such an extreme factor. The Generals, in their last 4 games against Bridgewater at Wilson Field, averaging 47 points per game, all victories. The last 3 games at Bridgewater, which have all been Eagles wins, 15.7 points per game. They are scoring 3 times more points at home than on the road. How do you overcome something like that?
I think with honestly that hunger, and I think there are 2 ways to respond to losses like they suffered this past weekend, and one of them is to be down, come out a little slow, and the other one is to come out very hungry. And I think honestly this can provide a little boost to you, knowing that you haven't played your best football here and wanting to prove that you still believe that you are the best team in the ODAC, and this is a team that you can go in and make a statement on their home field. So I think the best way, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense statistically why the Generals have had so much trouble at Bridgewater, and so I think if anything, you try to use that as a motivator and really try to make a statement on their home field.
And this is a situation very similar to what the Generals were in the last time they went to Bridgewater. It was later in the year, but it was coming off a home loss to Randolph-Macon, the game that ultimately decided the ODAC title. Granted, the Generals lost to the Jackets. This year comes in September with the entire remainder of the ODAC schedule in front of you. But, Colin, there is that kind of mental trap that you get into thinking that because you lost that game, regardless of who you're playing the next week, there's less to play for, and the Generals obviously have to overcome that.
Yeah, and Bridgewater head coach Mike Clark is in his 24th season, so maybe there's something that he knows about that field that we just don't know yet. But anyways, the Generals are going to have to most of it's got to be a mental block, I think. And I think that if you come out with a mindset that you have to play your best football in this game, despite the loss last week, you have to come out and you have to play well. I think that they will do that, and you'll see the offense start to get going a little bit.
Mike Clark, by the way, the only coach who's taken an ODAC team to the national championship game. Bridgewater has a Stag Bowl appearance. It's been a few years, 2001, but Bridgewater fell to, of course, Mount Union in the Division III championship way back then in Salem. Just about out of time on this segment, and so we will move on to our impact players and predictions for today's game. Colin Whitmore, we'll start with you. Who do you see stepping up to have a big impact on the outcome of the game for the Generals?
I think that the game for the Generals is going to be decided largely on the defensive side of the ball. I think the defense is going to play really well. I think that some of those younger players, first-year defensive back Dean Johnson so far in the season has 12 tackles and 5 assists. Sophomore linebacker Sam Murphy, 7 tackles, 11 assists. I think those guys are going to really step up and play big for the Generals. You know you're going to get a good game out of guys like Will Corey and Thomas Freeland, but I think that defense is really going to eat them alive. And I think that the Generals are finally going to win on the road at Bridgewater in a 28-21 game.
Ben Greer, same questions for you.
I think on the other side of the ball, I think, again, as we talked about early, it's going to be about distribution on the offensive end. It's about getting a lot of guys involved. I think Colin Sherman's going to try to get him involved early, and I think they're going to have success in doing so. So he's my key player for the Generals in this one. And I think the Generals are going to come out hungry. I think they're going to make a statement on the road. I have the Generals winning this one 35-14. I think they're going to figure some things out here.
I'm going to cheat and give you impact players. I want to see what the offensive line can do in this game. I agree Colin Sherman needs to have a big game, or someone else has to step up and help Josh Brees. But the guys up front, that's how they all get it started. How many all-ODAC players, even all-Americans, have we seen on the O-line for the Generals during this great run of success that Washington and Lee has had over the past decade? And I think those guys will answer the call. I agree with you. I think Washington and Lee wins maybe a little bit more on the low-scoring side with a great defensive effort. I'm going to call the Generals the 17-10 victory. Find out if we're right in just a few minutes as we send it out to Andy McEnroe live at Johnson Field. Right now, time for my conversation with Washington and Lee's head coach. Jeremy Franklin, joined now by Washington and Lee head coach Garrett LaRose. Coach, a tough game for your team on Saturday, 23-7 loss to Randolph-Macon. A struggle, especially on the offensive side, to move the football, particularly in the second half. What made the Yellow Jackets so tough on the defensive side of the ball?
I think we knew going into it they're a very physical and disciplined defense. And I think at times when we made mistakes, they certainly capitalized on that. I felt like very often we'd go from 2nd and 7 to 3rd and 6. We just didn't do well enough on those early downs to keep us on track, keep us in rhythm, and give us opportunities to call the offense as we'd like to. So our guys certainly watched the film. We're diligent to see the moments where, when that one guy missteps, they were disappointed and took advantage of that. We knew going into it 2 two very good football teams. Whoever made more mistakes, did not execute at a high level, would certainly show. And on Saturday, that showed for us a little bit. So I think we are excited in the fact that we saw it was not a schematic thing that we were like, well, that's a defense that gives us a lot of problems. How can we overcome that? It came down to more of execution on our side when those opportunities presented themselves. I also think a natural thing in a game like that is players begin to push and they feel every play has to be that touchdown. And we'll work this week to be more tempered in the moments and understand the ups and downs in the game.
Just in terms of emotion and mentality, how have the Generals responded in practice this week?
I think they've done a really good job coming out. We spoke off the air a little bit of we were in a very unnormal practice situation for the last 17 days as we prepared coming off of a double bye. So it was good to see the guys go out there, have a normal Tuesday practice, run around, game plan for a new opponent. So I think they're doing a great job of staying motivated. Also knowing the ODAC schedule, I think no one's naive to it over many years. Every week there's going to be competitive games across the schedule. So our guys are prepared, focused, and going to take control of what they can from here on out. And that's managing each week for our program.
I know that you're well aware that it's been a struggle for the Generals in games at Bridgewater in the last few seasons. What makes the Eagles so tough to play against, especially on their home field?
Certainly. I think they have a great environment up there. They have a great fan following. They have a great tailgate scene, which also makes it really exciting to play up there. A great atmosphere for our guys to go up and play in. So I think that's part of it. Certainly every team plays better at home, but they in particular, as you note, of teams in the ODAC play that we've probably been particularly unbalanced in our road situation there. I also think they're for us as an administrative staff, it's that awkward travel of a 45-minute trip and how we manage that. So we'll do that a little bit different than we have in years past. I know in my 15 years in the program, we've had a very consistent plan for how we approach our travel for that game. It'll be a little different this year, just trying to mix it up and time some things up to be closer to our typical home and away game. I'd say it's the one outlier where our morning schedule is not the same. So we'll do a little bit better job this year of trying to have our guys in their normal game day mindset for that.
You were talking earlier about that it wasn't necessarily a schematic thing, just an execution thing against Randolph-Macon. What do the Generals need to do to reestablish their rhythm on the offensive side?
I think what we need to do is really just focus down in and down out. And, I think certainly you saw on the first drive, it came somewhat easily until the mishap on the snap. And I think sometimes we get lulled into that and expect it to continue to be like that. And then, we start to lose control of the game on that sense. So I think the big thing, footwork and fundamentals, where during the layover when you're not practicing at a high tempo, and I think that may have been one of the biggest things was the speed of the game. It's been a long time since we had been in that atmosphere. So it's where I say I don't think we were out physical in the game or pushed around. I think at times we didn't react to the full speed tempo as well as we could have. So I think that's the other big thing about practice this week. We've come back, had a good physical fit practice that we weren't able to really have as we moderated that schedule over those days. So I think that will help us respond as well as just matching intensity early.
What are the keys for W on the defensive side of the ball?
I think they just need to continue to play the game they've been playing. I think they've done a great job these first 3 weeks for us. Certainly in a game like that, I think they played well enough for us to win. In today's college football, 23 points is not a lot of points on the board. You need to be able to score more than that to win a game. And I also think we didn't put them in a lot of great opportunities. We had some short drives, so they were on the field a lot. So I think they just need to remain focused and continue to execute it the way that they are right now. Again, I said it, week in and week out, they're a physical and fast group. Continue to do that, and we'll give them more opportunities to rest in between series. And I think the other big thing that both sides are talking about right now are managing field position. I think we had some opportunities in the game, even early on, when we could have tried to pin them back a little bit, put a little more pressure on their offense and their defense, but trying to manage that where, I think our defense got a lot of stops, but if we can keep them on one side of the field and we as an offense can swing field position, I think that's an important part of the game, drive in and drive out, and I think that's on both sides to continue to work on to make sure we're putting ourselves in good positions.
Well, Coach, thank you for your time. Best of luck against Bridgewater.
Thank you.
That is Washington and Lee head coach Garrett LaRose. His Generals kick off at the top of the hour with Bridgewater at Jobson Field. Time for a short break here on Generals Game Day. When we come back, tailgating with Jim Plantholt.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke.
145 over 92, and then I had a heart attack.
150 over 90, and I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure sounds like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from silent. Get back on your treatment plan or talk with your doctor to create a plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Everything's changed.
Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Generals Game Day alongside Neil Schaefer. I am Andy McEnroe. As we previously mentioned, Jim Plantholt out of the office today. So filling in for the legendary Jim Plantholt on Tailgating with Jim Plantholt is the lovely Devin Davidson, who has been whipping something up in the kitchen for us. Devin, what do you have for us here on Game Day?
All right, today we are going to be giving a little bit of help to the Philadelphia Eagles by bringing in some Philadelphia simple cheese steak dip recipe. I mean, who doesn't love a little steak, a little cheese, a little pepper and onion to get you saucy on a Saturday? So you're going to start your recipe with, of course, the peppers and onions. Get yourself a nice hot cast iron or pan, whatever works for you. Get in some butter or oil, whatever you prefer, and then dice up those peppers and onions and get them all cooked up there. Then it comes to the good stuff. Andy, the meat. You're going to want to use either leftover steak, or you can always use deli sliced roast beef, whatever feels good for you to do that with. You're going to chop it up, break it down nice and small little chunks, and heat that up just a little bit over that sauteed pan so that it can get ready to go in with the peppers and onions. Now for cheese, we're going to be using two different kinds of cheese today. You're going to be wanting to use a little bit of shredded provolone as well as some mozzarella. And for that creaminess, some fat-free or full-fat cream cheese, depends on how saucy you want to be here today, to mix up all of those cheeses together. Finally, you're going to have just a little bit of mayo or a little bit of sour cream. Mix that all in with those cheeses, and then basically stir up everything into a nice big pot. Put that into a good baking dish and pop it into the oven for 20 to 30 minutes at about 350 or 375. Finally, make sure that you've got some good crackers or some good bread dip to dip into that dip when it's ready to go.
Wow, that certainly sounds good.
Oh, Andy, I got a mouthful of that dip right now. It's just, whoa, that is so cheesy and meaty and so good.
So how long will it take, Devin, for fans to cook that up?
I'd give yourselves about 45 minutes. The longest part's going to be just prepping, dicing the peppers, onions, and meat.
Well, dippity-doo-dah. Special thanks to Devin Davidson for filling in this week for Jim Plantholt. We hope all is well with Jim and his family and hope to have him back on Generals Game Day soon. Right now, we pivot to the game at hand between Washington and Lee and Bridgewater, coming your way at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, Neil and I will have the call of that contest for you. So it puts us in a bit of an awkward situation as we head to the end of game day, as neither of us will make a prediction in advance of being on the call. But, Neil, let's talk about keys to victory for both squads. We'll do 3 keys apiece, and let's start with Washington and Lee, who comes in with a mark of 2-1 overall and 0-1 in the conference.
Andy, I'd like to see them start by being a little more unpredictable on offense. That could be, as you referenced earlier, maybe passing a little more, or at least in less predictable situations. Maybe change up their formations a little bit on offense to add a few wrinkles to the play calls. You know, they just need to find a way to not put the spotlight quite as heavily on Josh Brees. Second, I want to see that defense continue to get pressure on the quarterback. Will Corey especially is having a great year for the Generals, getting pressure, leading the team in both sacks and tackles for loss. And then third, the Generals need to be careful when on defense. Dakota Schrader, Demetrius Jalopoulos are two dangerous players for the Eagles. And Generals will have their hands full with them. They have to be aggressive, but they have to also, stay disciplined, aggressively disciplined, I should say, in order to take full advantage of their defensive strength.
On the Bridgewater College side, I think you saw the game plan on how to beat the Generals last week when Randolph-Macon defeated Washington and Lee. In that one, it was all about ball control. Bridgewater College needs to, 1, get up early, and then control the football, keeping Washington and Lee's offense off the field. 2, Bridgewater needs to run the football with their stable of running backs, as well as mix in their quarterback, Jay Scroggins, on some running plays. That will keep the Generals' defense off balance. Defensively for the Eagles, they have to do what Randolph-Macon did. Attack Josh Brees. Slow him down. He's 11th all-time in rushing at Washington and Lee with 2,141 career yards. Keep him from getting another 100-yard game, and you've got a key to success for Bridgewater. And then finally, take away the secondary options, whether that's Colin Sherman or Montgomery Owen. Colin Sherman running the football, Montgomery Owen catching the football. If Bridgewater can take away those options, they will have success today against the Generals, and certainly they have the home field advantage today in this road ODAC game for the Blue and White, where Washington and Lee has not had success. They have not played well at Bridgewater. This will be the 49th time these two teams are meeting. The Generals hold a 28-20 advantage in the all-time series that began during the 1964 season. I'm ready for the next installment of this great series. I know Neil is too. We'll take a 30-second timeout, and then we are live from Jobson Field. Stay with us. You were listening to Generals Game Day on WLUR, and here comes Washington and Lee football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington.
Sparky the Fire Dog here. Make sure your family has a fire escape plan, and they practice it twice a year. One important thing to practice is get low and go. If you see or smell smoke, it's important to get low and go. Protect your family from fire. For more information, visit sparky.org.
We want to keep you, your family, and your community safer from fire. This message brought to you by the National Fire Protection Association and your local fire department. Visit sparky.org.
Global warming is here. The effects may seem slight now, but in a few decades, they could be massive.
Heat waves, floods, and food shortages. What can we do? We can join together. Because when many unite as one,
we can achieve anything.
Together, we're powerful. Find out how we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT now, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
The following is a presentation of Generals Football on WLUR Lexington 91.5 FM. Now let's go out to the field for the call of today's game. Here's Andy McEnroe.
Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Generals Football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. I am Andy McEnroe, here for the live coverage of Washington and Lee football Week 4 as the Generals get set to take on the Bridgewater College Eagles. Joining me today in a film room-style analyst position is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Neil Schaefer. Washington and Lee comes in with a mark of 2-1, 0-1 in the ODAC after falling a week ago to Randolph-Macon by the score of 23-7. Bridgewater is 2-1, 1-0 in the ODAC after a 30-28 win a week ago on the road against Guilford. Both of these teams with a lot to gain as Washington and Lee looks to get back on its winning ways with a victory today on the road. But Bridgewater College has not been too kind to the Generals. In fact, Washington and Lee is just 1-8 in its last 9 games played at Jobson Field and hasn't won here since a 35-34 victory during the 2010 season. As I welcome in Neil Schaefer. Neil, it's a beautiful day for football, about 80 degrees here at Bridgewater, and the Generals looking to turn the ship around rebound after a disappointing performance a week ago at home against Randolph-Macon.
Yeah, outside of the second game of the season, the Generals' offense has yet to gain much traction. They are not running the ball like we've been used to seeing. Teams are getting used to the phenom that is Josh Brees, and the Generals are going to have to find a few wrinkles today to really get him and the rest of the team going.
Josh Brees comes in to today's game averaging 5.5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns on the season, a total of 316 net yards. And this offense you mentioned, Neil, only averaging 307.3 yards per contest compared to last year where the Generals averaged 461.5 yards per contest with a remarkable 403.2 yards per contest on the game. This year, only 251.0 yards per game on the ground. And of course, last week, those numbers, I should say, are dramatically impacted by last week's performance where the Generals tallied 156 yards in the first half against Randolph-Macon, but only 27 in the second half, only had the ball for 6 minutes of the second half, or 6 minutes and change, I should say. What does Washington and Lee need to do today to get that offense into gear?
I think they have to go deep into the playbook, Andy. I think they need to find some things that Bridgewater hasn't seen before, that the rest of the ODAC hasn't seen before. I think they have to, go out on the ledge a little bit and do some things that they may not be completely comfortable with. Maybe try to incorporate the passing game a little more. Their bread and butter is going to always be the running game. But if they don't have, as you mentioned in the pregame show, if they don't have a real, true play action threat, for example, it may be hard to soften up that Bridgewater defense that's going to be keying on the run.
Well, you mentioned going into the passing game. Certainly last week, Washington and Lee did test the passing game a little bit. I mean, for Washington and Lee standards, a little bit. In that Montgomery Owen seems to have emerged as an outside threat for the Generals, and both Trey Loughlin and Drew Richardson, the quarterbacks for Washington and Lee, can throw the football. It's been Trey Loughlin this year that's been more effective, 5 of 8 passing for 122 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. I think also the other thing you can mention on the offensive side is to integrate more sweep or speed sweep type action to keep the Bridgewater College defense off balance so that they're not queuing on that double option, speed option, or the triple option game for the Generals.
Yeah, and the stat that has me most concerned, Andy, at least of seeing pattern as the years progressed, is the yards per rush. Last year, the Generals averaged 6.2 yards per rush. This year, they are down to 4.6, only 3.3 last week, and only in one game, actually, this year, have they broken the 4 yard per rush mark, really weighed down by low rushing marks against Randolph-Macon and Dickinson. So, as you said, the Generals have to find ways to spread that Bridgewater defense, to keep them away from Josh Brees, perhaps, and to get larger chunks. The Generals have to kind of, we kind of have to assume they aren't going to pass much, and 4 yards per rush is not going to move the ball, not going to get it done, which is what happened last week, where the Generals were only able to get, I believe, 180 yards of total offense.
Yeah, as we mentioned, the Generals struggled on offense last week, but one area for Washington and Lee that has been very good thus far has been the defense, ranked first in the ODAC in points allowed per game, only giving up 15.7 points per game, and pass yards allowed per game, giving up a remarkable only 179.7. They're also third in the ODAC in rush, in allowing rushing yards, 144 yards per game. And really, it's been Will Corey stepping up, the inside linebacker for the Generals. 23 tackles on the season, 8.5 tackles for a loss, and 4.5 sacks. Just tremendous play from him, as well as Sam Murphy, his counterpart on the inside.
Yeah, the Generals defense, those linebackers are the engine that makes that defense run. Will Corey is Mr. Do Everything back there. He's broken up a pass there. You mentioned his tackles for loss and his sacks. But keying on that Bridgewater run game, just like Bridgewater will be keying on the Generals run game, is going to be so important for the Generals defense. They're allowing 144 yards, but I think in order to win, they're going to have to keep Bridgewater close to the average or below that today. The Bridgewater Eagles are dangerous on the ground, with their strong running back Yalopis, who's averaging, I believe, over 6 yards per carry, or right at 6 yards per carry, and almost 300 yards rushing on the season so far, Andy.
Well, we're going to step away for the national anthem back after this.
What would happen if you didn't follow the established path? Would
Did you feel scared or proud? Could you explain that helping the people of Peru improve their own community would also have an effect on your own? Would you rather make your own way or spend a lifetime saying, what if?
Hey.
Oh, hey, Deb. I thought you were the radon test guys.
The who test guys?
Didn't you see the papers Sunday? The Surgeon General issued another lung cancer warning.
Oh, like the cigarette warning?
Yeah. They're saying we have to get our houses tested for radon.
I don't smell any radon in my house.
That's because radon is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that seeps into your house from underground.
Does this story have a happy ending?
Yeah. You'll be a lot happier once you get your house tested.
Learn more. Visit the EPA at epa.gov/radon. That's epa.gov/radon.
I don't need to start saving. I'm years from retirement.
Floods don't happen here.
This chest pain is just a little indigestion.
This isn't a flood zone, right?
People have an amazing ability to deny obvious risks, like flooding. Yet floods happen in all 50 states. Fortunately, it's easy to find out your risk. Just visit floodsmart.gov or call 1-888-RAIN-022. Brought to you by the National Flood Insurance Program.
I don't need to start.
And welcome back to Jobson Field, Bridgewater College here in Virginia for Washington and Lee football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington. I am Andy McEnroe, joined today by Neil Schaefer as Washington and Lee getting set to take on Bridgewater. Kickoff about 5 minutes away, and it's now time for our starting lineups. We'll start with the Washington and Lee offense. At quarterback, the junior number 15, Drew Richardson. The slot backs today are junior number 6, Jimmy Johnson, and senior number 37, Colin Sherman. The option back for Washington and Lee is the sophomore Josh Brees. The wide receiver, first year number 4, Kobe Kirkland. The tight end is senior number 95, Reed Olstrom. The tackles are senior number 79, Mitch Hornsby, and junior number 71, Sean Clark. The guards are senior number 64, Harrison Carlson, and first year number 78, Will Jackson. And the center for Washington and Lee is junior number 66, Kyle Perrell. They'll be going against a Bridgewater College defense that up front has senior number 90, Muhammad Khan, senior number 99, Bobby Hicks, senior number 93, Roger White, and senior number 35, Bryson Plunkett. The linebacking core, just 2 of them in this formation for Bridgewater. Junior number 52, Rashawn Myers. He leads the team with 24 tackles. And junior number 27, Desmond Denny. The defensive backfield for the Eagles today features junior number 28, Luke Barnum, junior number 25, Joe Karen, junior number 8, Matt Dang, junior number 15, Gary Ramey Jr., and senior number 5, Devonta Womack. Washington and Lee's defense is anchored up front by junior number 88, Oak Mize. He's joined by the nose guard, junior number 69, Phil Davis, and the defensive tackle, junior number 75, Trip Callahan. The linebackers for the blue and white feature sophomore number 54, Andrew Frailer, junior number 32, Will Corey, sophomore number 40, Sam Murphy, sophomore number 16, Fred Benham. And the defensive backfield for Washington and Lee, senior number 21, Patrick Ryan, junior number 25, Davis Waldrop, senior number 5, Thomas Freeland, and junior number 31, Matt Dodson. They'll have the task today of slowing down the Bridgewater College offense that is led by their senior quarterback, number 4, Jay Scroggins. Joining him in the backfield will be the sophomore, number 21, Demetrius Yalopoulos. He's at running back, and Neil mentioned him a little bit earlier. The wide receiving core for the Eagles features junior number 3, Trey Stevens, senior number 10, Alex Galloway, and senior number 88, Dakota Schrader. He had a big game last week against Catholic with 6 catches, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I said Catholic, I meant Guilford was his big game. The tight end for Bridgewater is junior number 48, Grant Munson. And the offensive line for the Eagles, senior number 66, Brandon Bush, sophomore number 79, Cole Cooksey, sophomore number 54, Jordan Waters, junior number 75, Jeffrey Brinson Jr., and junior number 55, Will Hoffman. Both teams have taken the field. Bridgewater College in their home red, we'll call it maroon jerseys with gold numbers, white outline around those gold numbers, wearing gold helmets today and white pants. Washington and Lee in the all-white look with white jerseys, blue numbers and letters, white pants, and of course the Washington and Lee white helmet with the blue trident on the side. Neil Schaefer, 3 keys to victory today for Washington and Lee.
increase their offensive output, Andy. They cannot get it done rushing the ball only 250 yards this game. They need to get close to that 400-yard magic number we've talked about for the last few years. Second, they got to keep an eye on all-purpose weapon Alex Galloway. He runs the ball, he catches the ball. He's also a kick returner. Very talented player for the Generals. And then I want to see pressure put on Scroggins from the Generals. Will Corey and company bring that pressure. Scroggins has completed less than 50% of his passes, thrown 5 interceptions on the year. So if they can force some more mistakes, the Generals defense could be in for a big day.
Well, Washington and Lee looking to rebound, as we mentioned, as this is game 2 of the ODAC schedule. The Generals, one of 3 teams that are 0-1 in the ODAC. The other 2, Shenandoah and Guilford. Bridgewater College, one of 3 teams at 1-0 in the ODAC, joined by Randolph-Macon and Hampton-Sydney. There are 2 teams that have played 2 conference games already. They are Ferrum and Emory and Henry. They are both at 1-1. It's a beautiful day for football, 80 degrees, sunny, and I think both teams are about ready to go. Washington and Lee football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. Alongside Neil Schaefer, who's in the film room, I'm Andy McEnroe live at Jobson Field. Washington and Lee will be receiving the opening kickoff. On your radio dials at home, Bridgewater is going left to right here in quarter number 1. The Generals right to left. Back deep to return for Washington and Lee will be Alex Wirtz, the first year, averaging 25.3 yards per kickoff return. Teeing it up for Bridgewater is Logan Weiss, the junior. He hits a booming kick that'll be fielded by Wirtz at about the goal line. He brings it out across the 5 to about the 20. Just shy of the 20, they'll spot him, and that's where the Generals offense will go to work. As we mentioned, Washington and Lee led by Drew Richardson, the junior, at quarterback, but the Generals like to rotate their quarterbacks. They treat both him and Trey Lachlan as if they were running backs, which makes sense. When you're running the ball as much as the Generals, you have to avoid hits, and the quarterback is treated in that sense like a running back. Richardson is the quarterback. Brees directly behind him as he operates from the shotgun. Jimmy Johnson, the slot back on the left side. Colin Sherman, the slot back on the right side. Sherman comes in cross motion. Handoff is to Sherman running the left side speed sweep. He'll bounce off a couple of tacklers and is brought down at the 21-yard line. So a gain of 1 for Washington and Lee, and that was the sweep we talked about in the opening, Neil, and how they need to integrate that more into their offense.
Yeah, keep the defense moving left to right. Force them to try to, run sideline to sideline if they have to. Spread them out a little bit.
Richardson from the shotgun. Josh Brees now offset to his left. Jimmy Johnson and Colin Sherman line up to the same side. Wide splits on the offensive line as they'll run speed option to the right side. Quick pitch to Brees, but Brees is going to be wrapped up and dropped in the backfield. Great play on the outside, that time by Brady Barefoot. Correction, it was Matt Dang coming up from the safety position to make the tackle.
Yeah, great identification by the Eagles there. They were waiting on the perimeter for Brees. And I think that play developed a little too far behind the line of scrimmage, Andy. Generals now, I think lost a yard on that play.
So 3rd and 11 officially for Washington and Lee, deep in their own territory at the 19-yard line. Richardson from the shotgun, 1-step drop, fires the slant route. It's complete to his man on the outside. It's Montgomery Owen still running as he gets across the 30 out to the 35-yard line. A nice play and a nice pitch and catch. Drew Richardson to Montgomery Owen, the 1-step drop and the quick slant.
Yeah, and that pass was right on the money. Obviously, the Generals don't want to throw it too much. It's just not their style. But he showed the arm he has, and if they can add a few plays like that to keep the defense from keying too much on the run, it could help open up things for Josh Brees and company.
1st and 10 now for the Generals. Ball at the 35-yard line on the near side hash. The offense's wide side is the right side. Montgomery Owen at split end on the left side. Jimmy Johnson, the slot back, on the left side. Tight end Reed Ostrom on the right side. He's joined by Colin Sherman that direction. They'll run that way as they run the power option. Richardson will keep it. He gets across the 35 and is met by a wall of defenders at about the 38-yard line. A gain of 3 on the play for the junior quarterback.
And Richardson made the right read there, keeping himself and cutting inside. He had Brees outside, but probably for no more yards than Richardson had himself.
12:37 to play in the first quarter. We are scoreless. This is the first drive of the contest, and it's a 2nd down and 6 upcoming for the Generals. 4 yards officially on the gain. 2 slot backs to the left side of the offensive formation. They'll run Jimmy Johnson across as they hand to Josh Brees. Brees trying to get outside, nowhere to go with it. He tiptoes the sideline and is out of bounds. Might have lost a yard on the play, and he did as they spot him for a loss of 1. Will make it 3rd and 7 upcoming for the Generals.
The battle in the trenches, Andy, is going to be very interesting today. Bridgewater bringing it looks like 4 or 5, maybe 6 players right down on the line of scrimmage. Which team can get that initial push at the snap could go a long way in determining, the victor in today's game.
2 slot backs to the right side of the formation. They'll run option back to the left side. Try to get Sherman as the lead blocker for Brees. Pitches to Brees. He'll get across the 40, out across the 45, and it looks like he's going to have a Washington and Lee first down as Josh Brees with some nifty moves and some good blocking on the outside by Colin Sherman to get the Generals across the 45 and out to the 46.
Now, I'd love to hear what you think, Andy, but I feel like he made that pitch a little early. There was still room for that play to develop, force the defense to try to commit to one or the other. I mean, they were able to pick up that first down, great running. But I'd like to see the quarterback hold on the ball a little longer and force the defense to make a decision.
1st and 10 for the Generals. Ball on the near side hash. Split ends to either side of the formation for the Generals. 2 wing backs, or I should say 2 slot backs to the right side. Josh Brees directly behind Drew Richardson, who operates from the shotgun. Speed option back to the left side. Quick pitch to Brees. He'll get across the 45 and out across the 50. Pushed out of bounds in Bridgewater territory at the 49-yard line. On the tackle that time was Rashawn Myers for the Eagles, as Josh Brees just ran out of real estate that time, Neil.
Yeah, the sideline will do that to you.
2nd down, and we'll call it 5 officially for the Generals. Ball at the Bridgewater 49-yard line. Richardson from the shotgun, hands to Brees. Brees goes right up the middle. Big hole this time. He'll pick up about 4, maybe 5. Looks to be... They'll spot him with 4, about 2 yards shy of the first down, which makes it a 3rd down and short. And this is something we talked about in Generals game day, the need to be in 3rd down and short situations for the Generals to increase that conversion rate. So 3rd and 2 upcoming as the Generals hurry to the line of scrimmage. Richardson from the shotgun, 2 tight end set this time for the blue and white. Jimmy Johnson comes in deep motion, and there's movement up front. It looks like the Eagles may have jumped into the neutral zone and made contact with a Washington and Lee offensive lineman. The officials get together and we'll sort this one out. So it is offsides, as you can hear on your radio. 5-yard penalty will give the Generals a first down and move the chains. So 1st and 10 for the Generals. Ball at the 41-yard line. Generals stay in the same formation that they were just in. 2 tight end, 2 slot backs, 1 to either side of the formation. Jimmy Johnson comes in cross motion. They'll run the option in that direction. That's the right side. Pitches to Josh Brees. He makes 1 defender miss at the 40, and he's hammered as he gets across the 40 down to about the 36-yard line. On the tackle that time was the linebacker Deshmon Denny. Rashawn Myers also there. Sorry, Neil.
No problem. I'm just saying this is the kind of drive the Generals need to open the game. Obviously, they need to score. They need to set the tone early, at a stadium that has not been friendly to them. But they're using clock. They have not made many mistakes, or really any mistakes so far. They're being methodical, and they look good.
We'll call it 2nd down and 5. Ball at the Bridgewater 46-yard line. Offense's wide side is the left side. That's the way they'll run. Handoff goes to Colin Sherman. He tries to get the corner, is unable to do so as it's the safety, Matt Dang, on the tackle. A good open field tackle by the junior.
Sherman doesn't have he was trying to beat the the Bridgewater defenders to the sideline on the wide side of the field, and Sherman just does not have the speed to really beat them there. The Eagles had that sniffed out, from the snap.
So 3rd and 6 upcoming for the Generals. 2 tight end set once again for the blue and white. Richardson hands it to Brees. Brees will run up the middle, and he's met almost immediately. On the tackle that time is number 15, the whip for Bridgewater, Gary Ramey Jr.
Give another penalty.
A legal motion is the penalty on Washington and Lee. And so that will be, it looks like Bridgewater is going to decline the penalty. The defensive coordinator out on the field trying to signal that he would like to decline the penalty.
Yeah, I'd rather keep, if I were the Bridgewater Eagles, I'd rather keep them in Generals in 3rd and long, or I guess 4th, is it, rather than give them an extra down to play with.
When certainly the Generals are in territory where they will go for it on 4th down. 4th and 4 for Washington and Lee. Ball at the Bridgewater 35-yard line. The Generals stay in the 2 tight end, 2 slot back set. Jimmy Johnson, the slot back on the left side. Colin Sherman, the slot back on the right side. Richardson from the shotgun. Brees offset to his right. Eagles crowd the line of scrimmage, showing blitz in the A-gap. Richardson will run the option to the right side, and he runs out of room. Good tackling by Bridgewater College as it's number 5, Devonta Walmack, that ultimately cleaned it up for the Eagles, and that will be a turnover on downs.
I just think it was too predictable there, Andy. The Generals have been running these plays, same plays for the most part to start this game, and the Eagles know what is going to come. They probably have Richardson pitching it to Brees, and they were ready for it, and they stopped Jones for a loss.
So Bridgewater takes over with 8:05 to play in the first quarter. It's Jay Scroggins from the shotgun. 2 receivers to the right side. He'll throw it back to the left side. It's complete to his man, Chad Jones, who ran a little hitch route on the left side. And he'll pick up about 8 yards to set up a 2nd down and 2. The Eagles huddling up. Something you don't see a ton of nowadays, Neil. And now they'll break the huddle and head to the line of scrimmage. A flanker and tight end to the left side of the formation. A split end and slot back to the right side. They'll send Alex Galloway in motion and hand it off to the tailback, Demetrius Yalopoulos, and Yalopoulos will run it across the 45, out across the 48, and into Generals territory, tackled at the 49-yard line.
Yeah, the Eagles are showing the different kind of looks they're going to give the Generals defense, bringing a man in motion there, handing it off, but then handing it off up the middle in a position where they still could have passed the ball as well. Generals defense, probably going to take their time before bringing pressure, so they maybe get a feel for the early tendencies of the Eagles.
1st and 10 for the Eagles. Ball at the Washington and Lee 49-yard line, just inside the far side hash. 2 receivers to either side of the formation, I should say. Now they motion one back to the left side and run a wide receiver screen that direction. It's complete to Chad Jones, and Jones is able to duck inside for a gain of 2 as good pursuit by Andrew Frailer for the Generals to make the stop. So brings up a 2nd down and 8. The Generals with some defensive line substitutions. Defensive coordinator Brendan O'Brien likes to do that, brings in fresh blood from time to time. We have 6:28 to play in the first quarter, knotted at 0 here at Bridgewater College. Game 2 of the ODAC schedule for both teams. Scroggins under center this time. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Now he'll send Trey Stevens in motion from the right side to the left side. Now comes back across. They'll counter with the handoff right up the middle. Big hole for the sophomore running back, Demetrius Yalopoulos, and he's got a big gain. A gain of about, we'll call it 20, tackled at the Washington and Lee 30-yard line.
Yalopoulos showing his speed there. Quite a burst through the line of scrimmage. And a lot of holes to run through. The Generals' defense, their defensive line, often a strength, is at least the early goings here in this first drive is being handled by the Eagles' offensive line. Something we've seen over the years with Bridgewater, a lot of strong, powerful offensive lines.
So 1st and 10 for the Eagles. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Single back in the backfield as Scroggins operates from the shotgun. One-step drop and a quick slant route to the right side of the field is complete. Will gain 8 yards on the reception. It's number 8, Dakota Schrader, who we mentioned, the senior, one of Scroggins' favorite targets on the outside. And after that reception, he'll come out back to the right side and line up as the split end. 2 receivers on either side of the formation, very widely aligned for Bridgewater. Scroggins from the shotgun. He'll hand to his sophomore running back. No, he fakes it and will keep it himself and run behind the right tackle for a gain of about 2. Sam Murphy on the stop for Washington and Lee. The Generals able to keep contain on that one as Scroggins faked the dive to Yalopoulos and kept it and tried to keep it himself. Nonetheless, after that carry, it is a 1st and 10 for the Eagles. Bridgewater to the line of scrimmage. 3 eligible receivers to the left side of the formation. Now they'll shift around and send the tight end that was on the left to the right side. He lines up as a wingback on the right side. They'll send a receiver in motion and run speed sweep to the right. It's Alex Galloway on the carry on the speed sweep. But well played by Washington and Lee, as coming up to make the tackle was Davis Waldrop from his safety position. A gain of, we'll call it maybe 1 on the play, Neil.
And Galloway, one of those players I highlighted in the pregame, guy we're going to see run the ball, catch the ball, and return some kicks perhaps. A little Swiss Army knife of a player. You know, a dangerous weapon for the Eagles.
Bridgewater liking to shift. They came out in a bunch formation. Now they'll shift to trips on the left side of the formation. 2 eligible receivers to the right side. General showing blitz on defense. Scroggins looks left. Now scrambling to his right. Lofts it for the back corner of the end zone. Looks like he was just trying to throw it away and successfully does so. So it will bring up a 3rd down and 9 for the Eagles in the red zone at the Washington and Lee, we'll call it 16-yard line. If you're the Generals' defensive coordinator, Brendan O'Brien, Neil, what are you dialing up here?
I'd dial up, I'd bring some heat here.
Timeout called on the field by Washington and Lee. It's their first charge timeout. We'll use the break in the action to remind you that this broadcast of Generals football on WLUR is being brought to you in part by the Washington and Lee University Store. Owned and operated by W&L, the University Store is located right on campus in the Elrod Commons. The store features a wide range of apparel celebrating W&L, including the Peter Millar Collegiate Collection, offering polos and sweaters for your game day style. If you're looking for workout gear, we have a variety of performance apparel from Nike and Under Armour. All proceeds go back to the Washington and Lee community, helping to fund athletic alumni and student programs. The store is open 7 days a week, or you can order online anytime at store.wlu.edu. Neil, I'm looking forward to getting my new Washington and Lee University Store, Washington and Lee University polo, hopefully soon.
It's a great store. I'm surprised they don't also carry the Kevin Millar collection.
No, I don't think they do. Former Red Sox great and now MLB Network personality does not have his own polo line quite yet. Bridgewater College out of the Washington and Lee timeout, as are the Generals, and the Eagles send 2 eligible receivers to either side of the formation. Scroggins under duress as the Generals brought the blitz, and he'll throw this one out of bounds towards the right sideline. The intended receiver was Dakota Schrader, but he certainly was just trying to get that one away, and it looks like the special teams unit will come out for the Eagles.
Yeah, it looked like the Generals kind of overloaded their blitz on the right side of the Eagles' offensive line. That's the smaller side of their offensive line. Both guys under, I think, 260 pounds, both offensive linemen. Generals were able to get that pressure, and Scroggins had to make the quick and the right decision to just throw it away.
Dakota Schrader is the holder. Logan Weiss, the kicker for the Eagles, as the ball will be spotted on the hold at the 23-yard line. So a 33-yard field goal from the near side hash is up and good off the foot of Logan Wise, and that gives Bridgewater College an early 3-0 lead. But, Neil, you have to think that's a victory for the Generals' defense after the Eagles seem to be marching fairly steadily down the field.
Yeah, they were really slicing through that Generals defense and showing the Generals a variety of looks, too, passing to both sides of the field, running up the middle and to the edges. So, I think it's good for the Generals that they saw quite a bit in that first series, but they have to also find ways to tighten things up, limit the gains. Those were, a number of chunk plays for the Eagles. and I'm sure something the defensive staff will look at while the offense is on the field. But it is a victory to hold them to 3 points. But the Generals have to answer. They were driving well on their first drive, but just were not getting enough yards per play. And they have to do better, and they have to answer the Eagles here on the second drive.
So with 3 minutes and 32 seconds to play in the opening quarter, it's Bridgewater 3, Washington and Lee 0. Thanks for joining us on Generals Football on WLUR. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. Bridgewater still going left to right here in the opening quarter. Generals right to left. And on the right side of your radio dial, that's where you'll find first-year Alex Wirtz, the kick returner for the Generals, as he awaits the kick from the junior, Logan Weiss. This kick is a high end-over-end kick that'll back Wirtz up into the end zone. Smartly, the up-back, Owen Roberts, tells him to stay right there, and that's where the Generals will take the touchback and go to work at the 25-yard line.
Andy, what did you see in the first drive that you would change in the second if you were the Generals?
I think they were moving well in the first drive. I think they got a bit stagnant in the formation for Washington and Lee on offense as they stayed in that 2 tight end, 2 slot back. Look for head coach Garrett LaRose and his offensive staff to try to mix it up a little bit more here on this offensive possession. So Drew Richardson still at quarterback for the Generals, so not rotating sophomore Trey Lachlan into the ballgame. He'll take the shotgun snap and hands to Josh Brees. Brees will run up the middle, bouncing off tacklers, gets across the 30, out to the Bridgewater College 34-yard line. Officially now spotted at the 33-yard line. Will bring up a 2nd down and 2, a nice first down run for Josh Brees. So 2nd down and 2. Generals come out in the same formation. Richardson from the shotgun, Brees directly behind him in a pistol-like formation. Jimmy Johnson is the slot back on the left side. For the first time today, we see first-year Josh McDonald as the slot back on the right side. Handoff is to Josh Brees, this time running the counter behind the left guard's hip, and he'll get a first down for the Generals as he's out across the 35 and brought down at the Washington and Lee 38-yard line.
The Eagles are making life difficult for the Generals' run game, though. They're having 8 guys in the box, then bringing 3 more down. Once they're able to identify the play to fill any remaining gaps. Brees lucky to get a few yards on that play.
1st and 10 for the Generals. Ball at the Generals' 38-yard line. Colin Sherman back in the game at the slot back position on the right side. Handoff is to Josh Brees. He's met in the backfield, but breaks a tackle, still on his feet. Gets to the outside, got some running room. He's across midfield now, 45-40, high-stepping down the sideline, makes a defender miss, and gets inside the 20. A late flag comes flying in as it looked like Josh Brees' face mask was grabbed on the run that got him all the way inside. Neil, what a play in the backfield. It looked like Brees was going to be stopped for a loss.
And that was the All-American that we saw last year, a player that was able to make something out of nothing if necessary. It looked like, I couldn't tell completely, but it looked like Richardson might have gotten a bit of one of the defenders, a glancing block to help buy Brees a little time to get outside into the sideline. But he showed a little bit of burst and speed down the sideline once he had the edge.
So 1st and 10 for the Generals after the penalty moves them half the distance to the goal. Face mask was the call, as we suspected it would be. 1st and goal for the Generals. Ball officially at the Bridgewater 6-yard line. And movement up front by Bridgewater as they jump, as Josh McDonald went in deep motion from the left slot back position and was, I guess, caused them to be drawn off sides. And once again, it is encroachment on Bridgewater. So half the distance to the goal. I said the ball was officially spotted at the 7, so it will now be, call it the 3.5. Washington and Lee has Drew Richardson from the shotgun, 2 tight end set. Handoff is to Colin Sherman, who's at the option back position, and Colin Sherman runs in for the Generals' touchdown. So Washington and Lee, the first team to find the end zone, as Colin Sherman with a 3-yard touchdown run after the big run by Josh Brees.
And a big hole there. I mean, it was only a few yards, but big hole there for Sherman to run through. Great drive for the Generals. You know, a lot of it was Brees making something out of nothing, but sometimes that's what you have to do, and that's what good teams are able to do, is find good out of bad situations.
Jarrett Wright on to attempt the extra point. The snap is good. The ball is up, and it is through the uprights. So with 1:44 to play in the first quarter, it's Washington and Lee 7, Bridgewater 3. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff from Jobson Field. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, you know, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT now, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
And welcome back to Bridgewater College alongside Neil Schaefer. I am Andy McEnroe. The Generals with a 7-3 lead here in the first quarter as Colin Sherman caps off a long Washington and Lee drive that really only took 4 plays and 75 yards. And I say long because Josh Brees did a majority of the work, Neil.
Yeah, he showed that talent. You know, he's got a lot of it. But, there were I don't want to rain on a parade, but there were too many Eagles in the backfield for the Generals to be too happy with that play. The result was good. The process, some improvement still needs to be done.
Matt DeMasi on the kickoff return for the Eagles gets it across the 20, out across the 25-yard line, and is brought down at the Bridgewater College 28-yard line, and that's where the Eagles offense will go to work with themselves trailing by 4 points.
21-yard return. The ball is at the 28-yard line. We're taking first down.
For those of you that don't know, Neil not here with us today, back in the studio, watching the film, I should say, so doing a great job, I have to say, analyzing this contest for you. 4 wide receiver set for the Eagles. Snap is to the quarterback, who this time lining up was Brandon Metairie, who took snaps last year at quarterback, and he'll keep it on the run to the right side. Minimal game that time, brought down by Trip Callahan, who's also shaken up down on the field.
One of the real strengths about the Generals' defense, Andy, is how a lot of sure tacklers there on the defense. They don't miss a lot of tackles. They identified that play pretty quickly. Metairie's a talented player, but they read that play, swarmed the ball, able to limit it to just a couple yards, and we hope that General is okay down on the field.
Second down, and we'll call it 9 after that gain of 1 when we come back from this injury timeout. Thanks for joining us today on WLUR and WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. No video this week for us, as on the road there is no video. The home team will provide the video, but then you don't get to listen to the soothing sounds of Neil and myself. But Trip Callahan is now up, walking off under his own power, in fact, jogging off. So that's a good sign for the Generals. 1:20 to play in the first quarter. Washington and Lee 7, Bridgewater 3. Who knows, Neil? Maybe you can sync up the video at home from Bridgewater with our audio, and then you've got the best of both worlds.
Technology, Andy. It's a wonderland.
Second down and 8 for the Eagles. Jay Scroggins back in at quarterback. He'll go under center. Sends 3 receivers to the right side of the formation. Now we'll motion number 3, Trey Stevens, back across, and they run the counter trap. Handoff is to Yalops. Yalops, a big hole up the middle, and he's rumbling down the sideline. Yalops still on his feet into general territory, knocked out of bounds at the Washington and Lee 29-yard line. A huge run by the sophomore.
And he showed that quickness again. He had a lot of room to run through. Something I mentioned earlier, that offensive line was able to create a lot of space, a lot of gaps for him to get. In Generals maybe missed a tackle there, but it was Yalopis and that offensive line that made that play happen.
2 tight end, 2 flanker set this time for the Eagles. Ball at the Generals' 29-yard line on the near side hash. The offense's wide side is the left side. The Eagles coaching staff signaling plays from the sideline. 2 signalers, it looks like. Red and white wristbands on the signalers. Now Scroggins has the play, and the play clock ticks all the way down to 0. Let's see if Bridgewater's coaching staff got the timeout in, and they did. Timeout on the field, as it looked like it was about to be a delay of game on the Eagles. Well, Neil, thus far, if you take a look at the statistics, Washington and Lee performing better on offense than they did in the second half against Bridgewater. 87 net rushing yards already for the Generals, 2 of 3 on third down conversions. I know that's something we mentioned in Generals game day. And, of course, Josh Brees with 11 carries for 80 yards already, on pace for another 100-yard game as he continues to move up the school record boards. Coming into today's game, he had 2,141 career yards, which placed him 11th all-time on the school rushing record, and I think he was closing in on 10th, if my memory serves me correctly, and I'll get that for you as the game goes on.
Yeah, he's such a talented young man. I'd like to see another runner emerge today to take a little bit of the pressure off him in the running game, whether that's Richardson, Laughlin, Sherman, Johnson, someone. But Brees certainly showing his historic talent, historic at least in Washington and Lee terms.
Scroggins under center, hands to Yalopoulos once again, running straight up the middle. The sophomore will have near first down yardage as he's brought down at the 20-yard line. In fact, I have my note now. Josh Brees can move into the top 10 with just 103 more yards and can move as high as 8th place today with 140 yards. Quickly to the line of scrimmage are the Eagles, and they'll run the quarterback sneak. Looks like Scroggins will pick up 2 yards on the quarterback sneak, and he'll have a Bridgewater College first down. So the Eagles converted during their last red zone trip as they knocked in a 32-yard field goal. And with that quarterback sneak, that'll bring us to the end of the first quarter. So we switch sides of the field with the score, Washington and Lee 7, Bridgewater 3. Stay with us. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
Sparky the Fire Dog here. Make sure your family has a fire escape plan, and they practice it twice a year. One important thing to practice is get low and go. If you see or smell smoke, it's important to get low and go. Protect your family from fire. For more information, visit sparky.org.
We want to keep you, your family, and your community safer from fire. This message brought to you by the National Fire Protection Association and your local fire department. Visit sparky.org.
And welcome back to Generals Football on WLUR. As we head to the second quarter, it's Washington and Lee 7, Bridgewater 3. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. Happy to have everyone along for the ride today. The second ODAC game of the season for both teams. In the first quarter, Bridgewater College with 102 offensive yards, Washington and Lee with 103 offensive yards. So a fairly even match thus far for the Eagles and the Generals on a beautiful day at Jobson Field. Jay Scroggins from the shotgun. He'll send 3 receivers to the left side of the formation. It's Brandon Mettery at quarterback. He fakes the draw and then tries to run kind of a delayed draw, but unfortunately for him, he's met by big number 92, Connor Corbett, the junior, 6 foot, 250 pounds, who was not fooled. A loss of 4 on the play. So second down and 14 for the Eagles, as Corbett just busted through the line of scrimmage. This time the Generals put 2 down linemen and 4 standing linemen, showing blitz on the outside. Jay Scroggins goes under center, 2 tight end set this time. He'll motion Stevens back across the formation and hand to Yalopoulos on the counter, running behind the right guard. But the Generals not fooled, and it's Riley Bartlett crashing through the defensive line to make the stop. Minimal gain on the play for the sophomore.
You took the words out of my mouth, Andy. Not fooled. That was the key to that play. Eagles have shown a lot of motion, pre-snap motion today, and some of it has fooled the Generals. Allowing some holes and some running room up the middle for Yalopoulos and some of the other players. But that time, Generals held their lanes. We're not fooled by that motion, and we're ready to snuff that play out relatively quickly.
So 3rd and long for the Eagles, a big play for the Generals defense as the Eagles are in the red zone, now officially right at the 20-yard line. on the far side hash. 3 receivers set to the left side. Wide receiver screen set up and well played by Thomas Freeland as it's complete to Trey Stevens, and Thomas Freeland meets him in the backfield. A big loss as Stevens is brought down at the Washington and Lee 24-yard line. And now the coaching staff has a decision to make, as this may be testing the field goal range for their 2 kickers for the Eagles.
And that was a poorly executed wide receiver screen. You want to have some blocking out there for the screen. I don't know if it was miscommunication, poor execution, or what, but it was just a one-on-one defender and receiver, and it did not work out well for the Eagles.
Logan Weiss on to attempt the 41-yard field goal. Dakota Schrader's the holder. High snap. Schrader gets it down. The kick is on the way, and just long enough, barely clears the crossbar, as it looked like the timing for Logan Weiss, the junior, was off by just a little bit because of the high snap kneel, but nonetheless enough leg to just clear the crossbar. I don't think it even got across the white line underneath the crossbar, but it clears the crossbar and tacked 3 more points on the board for the Eagles.
And the holder did a great job. He showed his quick hands, able to catch that high snap. I was actually surprised he did, and able to get it down fast enough to not upset the rhythm too much for the quicker. And it looked like great trajectory coming off the kick, and you know, showed a little bit of talent. So far, he's the MVP for the Eagles. All 6 their points coming via his leg.
If you're hearing some background noise on the radio or on your computer, wherever you're listening, we've got the band right underneath us. A nice little touch here at Bridgewater College. We're in the second quarter, 12:44 to play before the break. It's Washington and Lee 7, Bridgewater 6, as the Eagles able to put that field goal on the board, capping off a very nice drive, four plays, about 55 yards.
Yeah, and Andy, those who listen to us all the time will probably hear some of the same things said over and over. But one thing we've often talked about is General's defense being very good at the bend, but don't break kind of defense, and they've shown that today. 2, long drives with big plays by the Eagles, and the Generals defense were able to adapt mid-drive and able to really snuff out those attacks and limit the Eagles just to field goals.
Logan Weiss with a line drive kick that'll be fielded by Owen Roberts, the up back for the Generals. He gets it across the 25 and is brought down at about the 32-yard line, and that's where the Generals offense will go to work. Logan Weiss's kickoff that time, a bit of a line drive, and that forced Roberts up to make the reception on the kickoff. So 1st and 10 for the Generals. Drew Richardson still at quarterback for Washington and Lee, so we have not seen the sophomore Trey Lachlan yet in this contest. Richardson from the gun. Colin Sherman at the option back position. Handoff is to Sherman. He'll run up the middle. Big hole for the senior, and Colin Sherman's into the open field. No one's going to touch him. Colin Sherman all the way for a touchdown for the Generals, untouched. Talk about opening up a big hole, Mr. Neil Schaefer.
And that was a big hole. And one of the Eagles, I didn't identify who on the defensive line, was able to get some penetration into the backfield. But by the time he got through, and he got through pretty quick, Sherman was already past him and gone. Wide open hole for him, and he showed some speed. I talked maybe him not having the speed to make the edge and an earlier kind of sweep. But man, that was a great run by him, and it was just, he was 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he was gone.
Great north-south speed. That's what you can say for Colin Sherman as he takes it all the way in for 6 points. The extra point off the foot of Jarrett Wright is up and good. So with 12:28 to play in the second quarter, Washington and Lee quickly strikes back and now leads the Eagles by the score of 14-6.
And I talked earlier about the Eagles bringing most of their team down on the line of scrimmage, maybe 8 men in the box and the 3 defensive backs, keying and coming down, crashing down quickly after the ball is snapped. But that's where you run into trouble. If the offensive line's able to open a hole, if the running back's able to find the right lane, the defense is going to get in trouble by having that many men down there in the box, because then it's, you get 5-10 yards downfield and it may be a one-on-one matchup. Or if it was like this last play for Sherman, it was him versus his own feet, making sure he doesn't trip because there was no one in front of him for 70 yards down the field.
A 67-yard touchdown run by Colin Sherman right up the middle. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Neil. I mean, the defensive line for the Eagles got penetration, maybe too much penetration, because Sherman found a slip in that defensive line and then turned on the Jets. You know, and that is a very quick score. The Eagles scored with 12:44 to play in the second quarter. The Generals come right back, score with 12:28 to play in the second quarter. So talk about responding for head coach Garrett LaRose, his staff, and his players.
And I think they need to be able to do that with every score. I'm sure they're a little frustrated with last week on the inability to get their offense going. But now they've had long runs from Brees and Sherman. They have to feel good about the kind of the versatility, and maybe just feeling a little more like the normal Generals running attack that we've gotten so used to seeing.
Jarrett Wright with a high end-over-end kick that backs up Matt DeMasi all the way into the end zone. He'll catch it and take a knee there, and so the Eagles will start at the Bridgewater 25-yard line. A beautiful kick by Jarrett Wright. Right now for the Generals seems to be like that things are clicking. One thing that's interesting to me is that we haven't seen Trey Loughlin yet, but maybe Garrett LaRose is taking a different approach with his quarterbacks than Scott Abel did at the end of last season, and that head coach LaRose has taken thus far this season in settling with one individual as opposed to rotating the two quarterbacks. Right now it's allowed Richardson to get into a rhythm. Now it's up to the Generals defense, 1st and 10 for the Eagles. Ball at the Eagles' 25-yard line. Handoff on the speed sweep. This time to number 87, Deron Robertson, and Robertson running to the right side, out of bounds at about the 30-yard line. Nice speed that time by the redshirt freshman. Will Corey. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry.
No, so much speed where the Generals actually probably feel pretty good about stopping him for only 5 yards. The Eagles have pretty good speed from their receivers, and so far the Generals have been able to limit any big plays coming from them.
2nd down and 5 after that 5-yard run. Ball on the far side hash. That means the offense's wide side is the left side. Eagles going right to left on your radio dials. They'll hand the ball off to Stevens, running to the right side on a speed sweep as he was lined up as a left slot back, we'll call it. And Stevens able to carry the ball for about 6 and another Bridgewater College first down. Chris Elliott on the stop for Washington and Lee. The Eagles quickly hurry to the line of scrimmage, once again showing some shifting. They line up in trips and then go to more conventional split end, tight end wings set. Play action this time on 1st and 10. Scroggins looks left and throws it right into the hands of a General defender. It's Fred Benham on the interception. And Benham at the linebacker spot in the zone dropped back into the hole, jumped up, and picked off the football.
I think there were a couple mistakes there by the Eagles. One, I think Scroggins, he took too deep of a drop on that play action, took way too long for that play to develop. And the Generals knew where he was going with that ball. He was going the left side the whole way, and Generals defender was just sitting down there, just kind of in that open space, waiting for the ball to be thrown, and it was not thrown high enough. Routine, easy interceptions for the Generals, and now deep, relatively deep, in Eagles territory.
Fred Benham, in what looked to be a cover 3 defense from my vantage point, dropping from his linebacker position into kind of the curl slant region and was sitting underneath the route. I think a little bit Jay Scroggins underthrew the football as well, and Fred Benham able to leap up, show some athletic ability, and intercept the football. Now it's Drew Richardson and the Generals' offense's turn. Josh Brees in the game as the option back. Play action from the Generals on 1st down. Throwing deep is Richardson. He's got Reed Ostrom open, and Ostrom, the big tight end, is in for the touchdown. Drew Richardson hitting Ostrom in stride. He's tackled at the goal line and falls across the line for the touchdown. And the Generals, as we talked about in the opening, Neil, getting creative with their play calling.
You mentioned in the game day pregame show that play action should be on a 1st down if they want to try play action, and it was so effective there. You saw the defenders, being drawn in by the fake handoff, and Ostrom was able to get a step on his defender really quickly, and then just nice and easy over the top with the pass by Richardson.
Jarrett Wright's extra point is up and no good this time, so the score remains 20-6 with 11:26 to play in the second quarter. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff from Jobson Field. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
At the football game, Jim shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. He screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" Jim streaks the field.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
And welcome back to Bridgewater College. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. The Generals leading the Eagles by the score of 20-6 after Reed Ostrom hauls in a 33-yard touchdown pass from Drew Richardson. Just one play on that drive, 7 seconds coming off the clock. So Neil, the last two drives for the Generals, a 7-second touchdown drive and a 10-second touchdown drive. So who says the Generals can't score quickly? Jarrett Wright with the kickoff, a high end-over-end kick that'll be fielded at the goal line by number 22, Matt DeMasi, making a couple Generals miss, gets across the 20, and is brought down by Washington and Lee's number 48, Alex Andros, just across the 20-yard line at about the 22. And so the Generals defense, which picked off Jay Scroggins on the last possession, will retake the field. And now it's Bridgewater College's offense looking for answers as they've only put up 2 field goals thus far today. Scroggins will go under center, 2 eligible receivers to either side of the formation. He'll motion Yallops to the right side, then sends him back across to the left side, and Yallops is cut down in the backfield. Nice tackle there by Washington and Lee's number 32, Will Corey, who is an inside linebacker but was on the outside, busted through and made the stop.
It was just one-on-one with the runner there. I mean, he had no lineman between he and the back. It looked like there was a lineman, maybe just a little confused, trying to find someone to block. But Corey's just too good of a player for the Eagles to handle on that play. And General's defenses, they're looking like they're picking up steam a little bit.
So a loss of 3 on the play brings up 2nd down and 13 for the Eagles. Offense's wide side is the right side. Scroggins turns hands to his sophomore tailback, and Washington and Lee seems to be swarming now on defense as nowhere to go for Yalopus as he's met in the backfield by a swarm of Generals. Leading the charge that time, number 92, Connor Corbett for Washington and Lee. Also getting in there all the way from his safety position was the strong safety, Davis Waldrop. So 3rd and long, 3rd and 13 officially for the Eagles. 3 wide receivers bunched to the right side. Now they'll motion 1 to the left side and then back across. So Alex Galloway, a lot of running. Maybe he missed conditioning practice this week. Now they look to the sideline for the hand signals. Multiple hand signals. Scroggins adjusts the formation slightly. Bunch receivers to the right side, single split end to the left side. Scroggins looking right. Schrader dragging across the formation. Now Scroggins scrambling to his right as he had no one open, and he throws that one out of bounds. Great coverage by the General secondary as Scroggins might have had Schrader open for a little bit on that crossing route, but not much more to work with.
The Eagles have had the most success today when they've run kind of speed runs to the sidelines. Maybe they have some advantage in the speed department against the Generals defense. But over the last maybe 7 to 10 defensive plays, the Generals have been sniffing everything out. And as you said, that was a coverage play completely. Not a lot of pressure. Scroggins had the time, but just no receivers were able to get open in time for him to pass.
So Jose Gonzalez on for the first time today for Bridgewater, looking to kick this one away. The snap's a good one. The Generals bring the rush. They almost get to it. Might have gotten a piece of it as it's a wobbly kick that bounces at the 40, takes a Bridgewater roll, but will settle right at midfield. So not a great kick, as busting off the outside for the Generals was number 44, Matt Mulligan, the junior linebacker. Might have got a fingertip on it, as that wasn't a terribly good kick by Gonzalez, who's a fairly good kicker for the Eagles. For the General,
more good field position for the Generals to start here, and the Eagles can't feel good about how many white jerseys were able to get through the line there that quickly on the punt team play. I think that special teams coach is going to be taking some look at some photographs and figuring out what went wrong, because there were definitely some communication errors on the blocking.
So Trey Lachlan in the ballgame at quarterback for the first time. They'll run the true triple option to the left side. Lachlan will keep it, making a couple of defenders miss. Hits the circle button on his PS2, maybe even PS3 or PS4, and spins forward for a gain of 7. Neil, it's clear I'm not sure what model is most relevant now in the gaming world.
We're just getting old, Andy. We're getting left behind by all these kids and their Fortnites and their games.
They don't even make NCAA football anymore. Let's not even get started on that. 2nd down and 2 upcoming for the Generals. Ball on the far side hash. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees trying to make defenders miss, but is tackled in the backfield. He got out of the first ankle tackle, but wasn't able to really step clear, and so Brees will lose 2 yards, and that'll bring up a 3rd down and 4.
And that defense, except for that one long run by Brees, they know what's coming at them. They know who Josh Brees is. He's not a surprise anymore. And with the exception of that play by Colin Sherman, the Eagles have been able to control the center of the line pretty well so far today.
3rd and 4 for the Generals, 8:23 to play in the second quarter. Speed option to the right side. Pitch is to Brees. Brees has some running room, tiptoeing down the sideline, and is dragged out of bounds inside the 30. We'll call it at about the 26-yard line. Well-executed speed option by Lachlan at quarterback with the quick pitch to Josh Brees.
And that one worked so well because Lachlan waited until the defender started to sneak toward him. He saw that, and that's when he pitched to Brees. And that gave Brees, an extra yard of space maybe, and a little extra time to get to the sideline and get downfield for that big gain.
1st and 10 for the Generals. Ball at the near side hash. Offense's wide side is the left side. Lachlan back to pass. No one open. Now he steps up into the pocket looking to run. Lachlan lunging for the 20-yard line and is dragged down inbounds. That time the tackle by the linebacker, Deshmon Denny, who was not fooled and was able to track down Lachlan. A gain, though, of about 5 on the run by Lachlan, so smart quarterbacking that time by the sophomore.
Yeah, and Lachlan showing a little bit of a wrinkle for the Generals offense, and a bit more of a passer, usually at least, than Drew Richardson.
We'll give him 6 officially. 2nd down and 4 upcoming. Ball spotted at the Bridgewater 19-yard line. Generals in a 2 tight end, 2 slot back set, and they'll run speed option to the left side. Lachlan trying to get the corner, unable to do so that time, as making the tackle on the outside is the cornerback, Luke Barnum, for the Eagles.
And Lachlan had 2 options there. Try to shimmy to the left as he did, or cut up field. Neither was going to be a big gain, but the right decision would have been to just cut straight up field when the defenders were giving him that option. Might have only been a couple yards, but that would have been better than losing 1 as he did, or 2 perhaps.
We'll call it officially 3rd down and 6. Ball at the 21-yard line now. It was at the 19 on 2nd down. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees will go right up the middle, gets to about the 18. So we'll be 3 yards shy of the 1st down, and it's decision time for head coach Garrett LaRose.
I wouldn't hesitate. I would go for it here. I mean, it's field goal range for sure, but the Generals have been running the ball fairly well. Lachlan, I think, has been making good decisions on these options. If they choose to go that route, they should be able to get 2.5 yards. And I think it's worth it, especially you have the margin right now at 20-6. Might as well take it at the rival Eagles and see if they can't put a few more points on the board in the form of a touchdown rather than field goal.
Timeout on the field called by Washington and Lee. We'll take a timeout as well. With 5:52 to play in the second quarter, it's Washington and Lee 20, Bridgewater 6. Stay with us. This is Generals Football on WLUR.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT now, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station. And
that drum line means we are back live here at Jobson Field. Love the band sitting underneath us here today. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe for Generals Football on WLUR. Washington and Lee facing a 4th down and 3 upcoming. Generals need to get to the 15-yard line, and the offense will stay out on the field. Lachlan is the quarterback. Brees directly behind him. Colin Sherman back in the ballgame at the left slot back position. Jimmy Johnson is the right slot back. And now a timeout will be called on the field by Bridgewater, as after seeing the offensive formation, head coach Mike Clark wants to talk this one over and figure out what the best defensive formula is to stop the Generals, as Washington and Lee already leading by 14 points. We'll keep it right here. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. Neil, remotely calling this one for you. The amazing things that technology can do for us as he's in our film room breaking this down play by play, looking at the live stats, looking at the live stream and his live video feed. And Neil, what have you seen thus far from the Generals?
I'm seeing a Generals defense that is evolving, and what I mean by that is they learn from each play. They seem to grow as the game wears on. You know, the last maybe 10 plays they've had, they stuffed the quarterback for a loss to run. They snuffed out that wide receiver screen. Next was an interception. After that, they had 2 quick. You know, they allowed maybe 8-9 yards rushing, but then were able to snuff out more plays by the Eagles and then nearly blocked a punt. They're only getting better as the game wears on, and I chalk that up to intelligent players and excellent coaching and preparation.
Well, Washington and Lee and Bridgewater have retaken the field. Lachlan from the shotgun fumbles the snap. Now he'll look to try to do something with it, and he has nowhere to go with the football. So after dropping the football, he loses about 9 yards as the Eagles work quickly on him in to make the stop. We're number 7, Brady Barefoot, as well as number 52, Rashawn Myers. And so a broken play and a missed opportunity for the Generals.
You know, good teams are their own worst enemies, I think. I think all good teams tend to be good enough to beat pretty much any opposition. I think the Generals certainly are. But when the Generals lose, it's often because of their own mistakes. And certainly not losing here, but that was a bad play.
On the 1st and 10 play, it's Scroggins quickly out to his receiver on the outside, number 19, Chad Jones, the sophomore. He'll pick up 9 yards on the right side hitch. And now it looks like the Eagles are going into hurry-up mode. Quickly to the line of scrimmage, and Scroggins will run the quarterback sneak. He falls forward for about 1.5 yards. That'll be enough for the 1st down. So that's the 2nd time today we've seen it where Scroggins goes to a hurry-up when he's facing a short yardage situation. Reed Clark was on the stop for the Generals. And so 1st and 10 for the Eagles. Ball at the Bridgewater 37-yard line, 5:04 to play in the 2nd quarter. Eagles going right to left here in quarter number 2. Scroggins under center, speed sweep, and the handoff is fumbled. The ball's on the turf. It's still on the turf. They're piling on top of it, and it's eventually picked up by Washington and Lee's number 21, Patrick Ryan, and he'll run it in for a touchdown. There is a flag on the field back at the 29-yard line, but Neil, it was pylon after pylon, and no one could grab onto the pigskin.
Those pigs are slippery, Andy, and that's why coaches teach you just dive on the ball. That's what the Eagles should have done if they had the opportunity, and that's once again an opportunistic Generals defense. Be curious to see what the flag is, though.
The penalty, it looked like, was on Bridgewater, and so it will be declined. It was unclear what the penalty actually was from our vantage point up here. But Patrick Ryan returns the fumble in for the touchdown, and so that'll bring Jarrett Wright on to attempt the extra point. Washington and Lee now leading 26-6. The snap is a good one. The hold is down, and the kick is up, and it's good. So the score now is 27-6 with 4:49 to play in the 2nd quarter. And right now, Neil Schaefer, the Generals seem to be firing on all cylinders and taking advantage of a couple of Eagle miscues, as that's the 2nd turnover on the day for the Bridgewater College offense.
Yeah, I'm sure the Eagles coaching staff is thinking that halftime can't come soon enough. And I'm sure they're going to have to, think of something to say constructively, for their team. Where they have failed has been in the execution department. I think they've had pretty good plays called, but, blown wide receiver screen that was not blocked. Defensive lapses, allowing some long runs by the Generals, biting on a play action pass, and then, a bad read on that interception pass, and then poor ball security there. It is mistake after mistake, and it's turning into points for the Generals. Andy, you played football. I mean, what would you want to hear from your coaches if you were on that sideline as one of the Eagles players?
Well, I think right now on offense, they need to simplify the offense and go on a couple of sustained drives, kind of milk the clock a bit, because right now the Generals are scoring very quickly. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, an offensive touchdown drive that took 7 seconds, another one that took 10 seconds, and then right there a defensive touchdown. And so Washington Lee has scored a lot of points. I mean, that's 18 points for the Generals in, call it, less than 30 seconds. And so now it will be Jarrett Wright with a high end-over-end kick that will be fielded at the 2-yard line by Matt DeMasi. And DeMasi unable to get it back out to the 20. Good field coverage that time by the Generals. On the tackle was number 24, Owen Roberts, for the blue and white.
Yeah, I think the Eagles, Andy, have had most success on a handful of different styles of plays, kind of quick passes to their receivers, maybe 7-8 yards on those. Some sweeping runs around the edge, perhaps with their wide receivers. And then I think, Scroggins has run the ball fairly well up the middle, and I think they, as you said, simplify it a little bit.
Scroggins from the shotgun drops back to pass. He's under duress and is pulled down for the sack. Andrew Frailer on the tackle for Washington Lee. A loss of about 1, maybe a little less than 1, as Frailer able to come from the outside and make the stop once Scroggins stepped up in the pocket.
And that's why you need that quick passing that I just mentioned, those quick passes to the outside. If you give the Generals defense some time, they're going to eventually find the quarterback. They're going to get pressure on him. Frailer, whether it's Corey, whoever it is, the General secondary is too good at buying their rushers time.
Scroggins from the shotgun, 3 receivers to the left side of the formation. They'll run the screen that direction. It's complete to his tight end, number 48, Grant Munson. Munson breaks 1 tackle, but the General defender holding on for dear life was Fred Benham, and the help came. The cavalry came. Chris Elliott was there, as well was Alex Cantrell to make the stop. A gain of 2 will bring up 3rd down and 8 for the Eagles.
I don't know. Maybe I just a different philosophy, but I believe if you have a screen, you need more than 1 blocker out in front of you, especially if it's your tight end, because the tight end's not going to have the acceleration necessary to, get a big chunk of yards before, as you said, the cavalry is there and ready to help out and swarm the ball carrier.
Even set this time for the Eagles. 2 wide receivers to either side of the formation. Now they motion 1 to the left side. They try to run a wide receiver screen once again, as they had motioned Metairie from the right side to the left side, and then tried to throw the screen to Chad Jones. Well covered by the Generals, and Scroggins just has to throw it out of bounds to the Bridgewater bench. So the Eagles going 3 and out and have to bring the punting team out onto the field, facing a 4th down and 8 deep in their own territory.
Certainly not the sustained drive you said the Eagles would have wanted there, Andy.
Montgomery Owen on to return the punt for the Generals, standing at about his own 49-yard line. Gonzalez had his first punt partially blocked, and it barely got to midfield. This one's an end-over-end kick that Gonzalez, whether intentionally or not, angles towards the sideline, and it will go out of bounds, and not a great kick, as the Generals will take the ball at the 41-yard line. So only about a 20-yard net punt. The ball was at about the 21-yard line, goes out of bounds in the air at the 41-yard line. And so great field position for the Generals, who find themselves leading the Eagles by the score of 27-6 with 3:08 to play in the second quarter.
It's still too early, obviously, to call this game, Andy. A full half to play. The Eagles still have a lot of talent team, but this lead gives the Generals the opportunity to maybe practice some things they wouldn't have normally planned. Some extra elements to their offense.
Richardson, the quarterback, he'll hand to Josh Brees. Flags on the play at the snap. It's either going to be a hold or an offside based on the line judges throwing the flags. And it looks like the initial sign is that the Eagles lined up in the neutral zone. And that's what it is. Offsides on the defense. A 5-yard penalty will be 1st and 5 now as we will replay first down.
And it's another Eagles mistake that's costing them. As I said, other than the one big run essentially up the middle by Sherman, they've been able to control the middle of the line of scrimmage for the most part against the Generals' rushing attack. But you can't make mistakes and cost yourself yards.
Richardson from the shotgun, pistol-like formation, play action as he fakes the handoff to Brees, lofts it deep downfield, and the receiver is not yet knocked down in the defensive secondary. He was looking for Montgomery Owen, who had a step on Devonta Walmack, and Walmack gets tangled up with Owen. Flags do fly, and it looks like it will be pass interference on the defense. Montgomery Owen, who before the season was moved back from the wide receiver position to slot back, started the first 2 games at slot back. Last week we saw him at wide receiver running some routes. This week been exclusively featured at the wide receiver. They're going to call holding instead of pass interference, so holding on Walmack will be a 10-yard penalty and an automatic first down for the Generals. Puts Washington and Lee inside the 30 at the 25, we'll call it 26-yard line of the Eagles. As I was saying, Montgomery Owen now being featured out wide, lines up as the split end to the right side. Some great speed and good hands. Richardson, the junior quarterback, operates from the shotgun. Johnson comes in deep motion. Handoff is to Josh Brees. A nice slide step in the backfield to make one defender miss, but then is met by a wall of defenders. Deshaun Davis on the stop for the Eagles. There is a late flag that comes in from the backside judge. The officials getting together. We'll see if the crowd mic can pick it up.
Hands to the face. Defense number 5. After this, to the goal. Automatic first down.
So hands to the face, a personal foul, half the distance to the goal, and an automatic first down for the Generals after the penalty was called on Bridgewater.
I think that's, what was that, Andy? Four plays and 3 penalties by the Eagles in this drive. I mean, I think halftime cannot come soon enough because it does seem like the game is getting away from them, both offensively and defensively. They really need to hit the reset button, refocus, and somehow, or it's really going to get away from them.
1st and 10 for the Generals. Handoff is to Josh Brees. He'll run right up the middle. Bulldozing, folks. Gets inside the 10, down to the 5-yard line. A gain of 7 on the carry for Josh Brees. And the Generals still can get a first down before finding the end zone. They're right now at the Eagles' 5-yard line in the middle of the field. Spreading the formation a bit with 2 split ends. Johnson lining up towards the left side as well. And Montgomery Owen also on the left side. Excuse me, that's Josh McDonald. They'll run the option to the left side. It's Richardson on the keeper. No gain on that carry.
Richardson, the ball carrier for Washington Lee.
Wasn't really a successful play because it didn't look like there was a true option out to his left. I felt like the alignment wasn't quite there, and there just wasn't really an opportunity to pitch it. Eagles were not going to be fooled and bite on the option.
So 3rd down, and we'll call it about 4. 1:30 to play before halftime. It's Washington and Lee 27, Bridgewater 6. Richardson from the shotgun, 2 tight end set this time. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees lunging for the end zone, and he's going to be spotted down at the 1. So the offensive line for the Generals getting some surge, and Josh Brees able to get a first down, so it will be 1st and goal. Braden Tomlinson on the stop for Bridgewater. But nonetheless, 1st and goal for the Generals. Handoff is to Josh Brees. And this time the Eagles' defensive line wins the battle, and Brees will be stopped at the line of scrimmage, pulled backwards off the pile by several defenders, including number 90, Muhammad Khan for the Eagles.
And number 98, Deshaun Davis for Bridgewater.
Under a minute to play before halftime. 2nd down and goal upcoming for the Generals. 2 tight end set, 2 slot backs, both to the right side, and before the play can snap, movement on the outside. It was number 41, the backup tight end, Alex Heap, who moved on the offensive line, and that's going to be a 5-yard penalty and make it a little bit more challenging for the Generals here, trying to get one more score before halftime. So Washington and Lee knocking at the doorstep. And now we'll have to see where we sort this out as the officials talking it over. Neil, what are you seeing from your vantage point?
I think not seeing much different than you, Andy. But I think the Generals here, once again, I think they got to limit those mistakes. I mean, they cost themselves some yards there. And these are the kind of things, even with a big lead, the coaching staff is just not going to accept and not going to be happy with.
So the microphone on the official not working, but what I assume is happening here is because the penalty was on the offense, there's either a 10-second runoff or the Generals use a timeout. Right now it looks like they're going to reset the clock as the official is looking down towards the scoreboard. The microphone on the official somewhat broken, so it was unclear what exactly he said. They've moved it now from about 32 seconds to 41 seconds. The official still looking that direction, and that's what the delay is right now on the field. The scoreboard currently showing one timeout remaining for both teams. And now the scoreboard's down to 22 seconds, so I think he signaled 23 with his hands, but it's unclear. And so it appears the Generals took the 10-second runoff, as they do want to go into the locker room, not leave any time for the Eagles. And so the clock is blown back in. Second down and goal. Ball now at the 5. Handoff is to Josh Brees. And Brees will run inside the 5 down to the 3-yard line. And the Generals will use a timeout with 6.3 seconds to play before halftime. And what looks to be one play before halftime.
And I think it was good they took that 10-second runoff. I think they knew what they were doing. They were looking at themselves having 2 plays there to get in the end zone. They certainly want to score at another touchdown there, expand that lead, go into halftime feeling good and comfortable. Something they haven't necessarily experienced in many games so far this year.
27-6. 6.3 seconds to play before the break. Coming up at halftime, Neil Schaefer and I will take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Plus, we'll hear from WLUR Sports Director Ellie Cosgrove and her Athlete Spotlight interview. This week, she sits down with cross-country captain Hank Patrick, and we'll break down the first half for you and take a look at the first half statistics. All of that coming your way at halftime. But before then, the Generals will retake the field probably with one play to go before halftime, leading the Eagles by the score of 27-6.
Second quarter, Michigan 10, Maryland 7.
Neil, if you're head coach LaRose, what do you dial up here?
I think I'd stick with what's been working, or at least on this drive. And I think what we're going to see is either Sherman or Brees take the ball up the middle.
Third down and goal. Ball spotted at the 3-yard line. Offense's wide side is the right side. Montgomery Owen is the split end that side. Movement up front. And a late flag flies now, as it will be encroachment on the Eagles. The third time today where a General slot back has gone in deep motion and the Eagles have jumped off sides.
Yeah, you think the Eagles would be a little more used to motion with their offense employing it as much as they do, but the Generals have fooled them a few times. Thought the ball was being snapped there by the Generals, motioned by the back.
Now they're going to call false start on the Generals, as there was movement, they're saying, that drew them off sides. And I would suspect that would take us to halftime because of the penalty, but I guess coming out of the timeout, the clock was stopped, and so at 6.3 seconds, it wasn't moving, and because the foul happened before, and now Bridgewater will use its last timeout. So we'll keep it right here, as this has been the longest 6.3 seconds of my life. Neil, I don't know how long it's been for you, but both teams trying to strategize here before the break to ensure that they go into the locker room with their best position. And for the Eagles, that means stopping the Generals here. Third down and goal. It will be now from about the 8-yard line after that 5-yard false start penalty.
Yeah, both teams want to go into halftime with something positive, whether that's a stop for the Eagles, another touchdown for the Generals, but something where they can go into the halftime with their players on a high. The Eagles need that certainly more than the Generals. They'll be getting the ball first in the second half, and they would love the momentum. Their defense stops them and say, okay, offense, this is your turn when we get back on the field to close the gap a little bit. It's the game, certainly not out of hand for the Eagles. I mean, it is a significant margin, 27-6, but it is not out of reach, especially because the Eagles get the ball first in the second half.
Now both teams will retake the field. I'm not sure there's much more we can say about what could happen in this next 6.3 seconds that we haven't already said. So I will say this. I think the Generals are going to throw the football here. Surprise everyone. 3rd down and goal. Ball at the 8-yard line. 6.3 seconds to go before halftime. Montgomery Owen out as the right split end. Richardson, a 2-step drop. He'll throw towards the end zone. Throws into triple coverage looking for Jimmy Johnson. And it's broken up. And so 2.5 seconds remain on the clock on the incomplete pass. And the Generals will trot out their field goal team to attempt a field goal here before halftime.
Yeah, there's an open receiver, Andy, going towards the front, the left front pylon of the end zone. Probably would have scored if the ball was thrown to him, but the Generals have a chance here to get some points on the board. And with both teams maybe looking at this drive as a little bit of a positive.
So Trey Lachlan is the holder. Jarrett Wright, the kicker. Ball will be spotted at the 15, so a 25-yard field goal. Bridgewater busts through the line of scrimmage. The kick is away, and it's up and good. Lachlan got truck-sticked as the Bridgewater defender got through, but Jarrett Wright, staring down the barrel, knocks it through, and so the Generals will go to halftime with a score and a lead of 30-6 over the Eagles. Neil, what did you see on that last field goal attempt?
I just don't know how it wasn't blocked, Andy, because it looked like there were 3 Eagles in the backfield as soon as the ball was snapped. I thought Wright was going to get destroyed, but he got that kick up. He ended up, on his backside, I think, after the kick. But yeah, that was some good penetration by the Eagles, and the Generals were fortunate it was not blocked and potentially returned.
Well, it's halftime here at Jobson Field, and so we will step away for 2 minutes. When we come back, Ellie Cosgrove, WLUR sports director and star volleyball player, sits down with cross-country captain Hank Patrick. I'm looking forward to that interview. But first, we take a timeout. Back with more from Jobson Field on the campus of Bridgewater College after this timeout. You're listening to Generals football on WLUR. We're at halftime. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 6.
Saving? I'm years from retirement.
Floods don't happen here.
This chest pain is just a little indigestion.
This isn't a flood zone, right?
People have an amazing ability to deny obvious risks, like flooding. Yet floods happen in all 50 states. Fortunately, it's easy to find out your risk. Just visit floodsmart.gov or call 1-888-RAIN-022. Brought to you by the National Flood Insurance Program.
I don't need to start
Global warming
saving.
is here. The effects may seem slight now, but in a few decades, they could be massive.
Heat waves, floods, and food shortages. What can we do? We can join together. Because when many unite as one,
We can achieve anything.
Together, we're powerful. Find out how we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
I'm years from retirement.
Floods don't happen here.
This chest pain is just a little indigestion.
This isn't a flood zone, right?
People have an amazing ability to deny obvious risks, like flooding. Yet floods happen in all 50 states. Fortunately, it's easy to find out your risk. Just visit floodsmart.gov or call 1-888-RAIN-022. Brought to you by the National Flood Insurance Program.
I don't need to start saving. I'm years from retirement.
Floods don't happen here.
This chest pain is just a little indigestion.
This isn't a flood zone, right?
People have an amazing ability to deny obvious risks, like flooding. Yet floods happen in all 50 states. Fortunately, it's easy to find out your risk. Just visit floodsmart.gov or call 1-888-RAIN-022. Brought to you by the National Flood Insurance Program.
At the football game, Jim shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. He screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" Jim streaks the field.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Hello, Washington and Lee sports fans. I'm Ellie Cosgrove, joined today by Hank Patrick, who is a senior on the men's cross-country team. Hank, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure. So my first question is kind of regarding the last meet you guys had. You led the team at the Queen City Invite. How was that meet? I noticed that there were a lot of divisions there. It wasn't just Division III. What was the competition like? Is this something you guys normally go to?
Actually, it's not something we normally go to. It was a good competition for us, though, because, like you said, there are a lot of D1 and D2 teams there. But the main thing was the course was really flat, really predictable, and it was a good way to get out there, get a fast 8K, and sort of see where we stand.
And what are some examples of the Division I teams that were there? Was that Queens or like nearby universities?
Queens was there. Elon was there, which is nearby. Bunch of other schools, ones that we don't normally compete against.
And then I was just talking to you about this, but you said this is kind of normal for you guys. I play volleyball, so we normally don't have these long breaks in between games. But your last meet was September 28th, and your next one is October 13th, all the way in Wisconsin, actually, at the UW Oshkosh College Town Sports Invitational. And you were just telling me how this is going to be a pretty important meet for you guys. Can you just talk a little bit about how you stay mentally engaged as a team, and then when you do have these long gaps, and then prepare for something that's this important within that time period?
Yeah, well, I think most of us would agree that we like these long gaps. One reason being that 8K is a long way,
yeah.
And you'll feel that a couple days later.
Yeah.
So we like to have that one weekend down. And then, yeah, like you said, this upcoming meet at Pre-Nats in Wisconsin is a pretty big meet. We'll be facing a lot of ranked teams, a lot of teams that we'll be competing against to hopefully get a bid to nationals come the end of the season. So it's something we're really focusing on. And, yeah, in terms of staying mentally engaged, this has been one of our long-term goals, is competing well at this meet. So we're all pretty focused on it.
And what are some of the programs that you guys are looking at competing against that you need to beat to get this at-large NCAA bid? Is there certain teams that you guys are looking to beat, or?
Well, certainly by the end of the season, it'll come down to how we compare against the teams within our region, which are Rhodes, CNU, Berea. But coming up at Pre-Nats, there's just a bunch of teams that might end up in sort of maybe 15th to 30th in the country that a head-to-head win against will help in terms of getting a national bid.
Gotcha. And then kind of looking backwards to last year, you had one of your best seasons here at WNL, earning first-team All-ODAC accolades and All-Region laurels, and also qualifying for the NCAA championship, which is awesome as an individual. On top of that, you also had some academic accolades as well, including the ODAC Virginia Far Bureau Scholar Athlete Award. Kind of going off that, how are you carrying that into this year, that momentum, and then what goals do you have for this season?
Well, sure, carrying it through, I've just been trying to build off of that. Last year was a pretty big increase in mileage, and apparently it helped because the performances improved. So we've been continuing with that, trying to train smart, but also get in all the work. And then in terms of academics, you know, to quote one of my teammates, you just got to be an academic weapon all the time. So
yeah, we say an academic machine. You just got to close your eyes and keep going. But then kind of going off of that, are you cross country in the track as well? So you're a year-round student athlete, essentially. What is that like, always being in season as a student?
It's actually not too bad, you know. We get about 10 days off between each season, so it's about 20 days per year, which is, you know, something.
Yeah.
But honestly, running year-round, you're always engaged. You're always dealing with time management in terms of practice. So I think in some ways it actually helps you stay organized and stay on top of academics.
And what is your major here at WNL?
Biochemistry.
And do you have any ideas or plans for after college yet, or still kind of feeling things out?
Med school's the plan. So.
Oh, nice. Which ones do you have in mind?
I'm looking at my in-state at LSU New Orleans, a couple in Texas, possibly NYU.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then my last question is just, what are kind of some of the team goals this year, and what is the team dynamic like? I don't know if you guys have a lot of younger runners this year, or kind of just what the team dynamic is and what your plans are for this season.
Yeah, well, we have a pretty close team, and we have 4 new first years this year, but they're all fitting in well. And a big focus of the team is last year we missed out on our team bid to nationals. So that's a pretty big goal for all of us, and we're all pretty focused on that. And yeah, one way we do that is we keep a tight team environment, and we work hard together because we all have the same goal in mind.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck at that meet on October 13th.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You are listening to Washington and Lee University Football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington.
Global warming is here. The effects may seem slight now, but in a few decades, they could be massive.
Heat waves, floods, and food shortages. What can we do? We can join together. Because when many unite as one,
We can achieve anything.
Together, we're powerful. Find out how we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back at halftime between Washington and Lee and Bridgewater. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 6. Special thanks to Ellie Cosgrove, as she does a tremendous job every week with our athlete spotlight on WLUR. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. As I mentioned, we are at halftime, and it's now time we take a look at the first half statistics for the game between the Generals and the Eagles. Washington Lee's offense has kicked it into gear, 242 total yards of offense, 193 of those yards coming on the ground. Bridgewater College, 116 yards of total offense, 89 on the ground, 27 through the air. In fact, Washington and Lee is outpassing Bridgewater, Neil, by a mark of 49-27. That's something we may have not thought of coming into today's contest. The Generals have also forced turnovers on defense. They have an interception and a fumble returned, a fumble that was returned all the way for a touchdown, while Washington and Lee on offense has fumbled the football, but they have not lost the football. And finally, Washington and Lee has converted on third downs and controlled the football. Last week we mentioned that Randolph Macon really ran Washington and Lee out of the building in the second half. Thus far, through one half of football, the Generals leading the time of possession battle 16 minutes and 2 seconds to 13 minutes and 58 seconds. And more importantly, the Generals converting 4 of 7 third downs to Bridgewater's 0 for 4. And finally, Washington and Lee converting in the end zone, converting when they've been in the red zone as well. Josh Brees leading the way for Washington and Lee, already 115 yards on 19 carries, averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Colin Sherman, 71 yards on 4 carries, of course, the big run. As we noted earlier in the broadcast, Josh Brees, with his performance already today, has moved into 8th place. Or I should say is getting close to moving into 8th place. He's definitely already moved into the top 10 in rushing for Washington and Lee. He needs 140 yards on the day to get to 8th overall in school history. Colin Sherman came into today's game just 8 yards shy of 1,000 career rushing yards. He has now eclipsed that, so congratulations to Colin Sherman, who has over 1,000 career rushing yards for Washington and Lee, and has certainly been a key cog in the Generals' offense today. Drew Richardson and Trey Lachlan have both played quarterback. Lachlan running the football, 4 carries for a net total of 6 yards. Drew Richardson, 2 carries for a net total of 1 yard. Drew Richardson, though, also, Neil, 2 of 3 passing for 49 yards, and that touchdown was to Reed Ostrom on a 33-yard touchdown reception. Montgomery Owen had the other catch for the Generals, a 16-yard touchdown. Let's pause there and talk about the Generals' offense. What did you see from them in the first half?
Well, before kickoff, I talked about yards per rush. We both did. And Generals here are averaging 6.7 yards per rush today, and that is so vital. Yes, that's buoyed by the long runs by Sherman and Brees, but that's okay. The Generals are running much more efficiently and effectively than they have in previous games. I love to see that. I also like the effectiveness, though very limited, of the passing game. They had that effective play-action pass on a first down that resulted in a touchdown to Reed Ostrom. I think that's been great. I think there's still some things they can clean up on offense. I think a little better execution on some of the option pitches. And also, offensive line needs to try to get a better push in the middle of the line of scrimmage. But overall, it's a much improved offense over last week, Andy.
Well, taking a look at the Bridgewater College individual statistics, leading the way for them has been Demetrius Yalopoulos, 7 carries, 71 yards. His long run on the day, 41 yards. Jay Scroggins throwing the football, 6 of 11, 27 yards and 1 interception. Chad Jones has been his top target, 3 catches for 19 yards. Dakota Schrader also with 1 catch for 9 yards. Really, for the Eagles, they've struggled to sustain drives despite scoring the opening points here in this one on a Logan Weiss 33-yard field goal. Outside of that, they've only gotten 1 other field goal from Logan Weiss, a 41-yard field goal, but have turned the ball over and allowed big plays for the Generals. What adjustments does Bridgewater make here at halftime?
I think they need to give the ball more to back to Demetrius Yalopoulos. I feel like they started the game feeding him the ball, but he only has 7 carries at the half, 71 yards. I mean, averaging over 10 yards per rush, and that success was not cheaply earned either. I mean, he showed good burst, good speed, and the offensive line is able to open some holes for him. They need to try to establish that run. I don't think Scroggins is going to have a ton of success through the air. And I think a lot of their success, if they have any today, is going to come through their running backs.
Well, taking a look at the out-of-town scoreboard now, we'll start first with the ODAC variety. It's Shenandoah on top of Hampton-Sydney at halftime by the score of 24-6. Randolph-Macon all over a Guilford team that just barely fell to Bridgewater last week by the score of 42-0 at halftime. And in a non-conference ODAC showdown, it's Thomas More 24, Emory and Henry 10. Neil, I'll shift it over to you for the Division I college football out-of-town scoreboard.
Thanks, Andy. I got multiple monitors here, keeping track of all the action nationwide. And here's some top 25 scores for you. The game's in progress. Alabama is just having its way with Arkansas, 48-17. That's deep in the third quarter. The Tua Tagovailoa had a 72-yard touchdown pass on the first play of the game. Alabama, no surprise, they continue to steamroll all comers. Number 9, West Virginia, leading Kansas 28-14 at the end of the third quarter. Probably another comfortable win for an excellent Mountaineers team, but I think it's notable that the Jayhawks actually have 14 points in conference play. Not a very good team, but they are showing some improvement. Number 20, Michigan State, leading Northwestern 19-14. That's 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Number 23, NC State, leading ACC rival Boston College 21-3. Notable for Boston College is that superstar running back A.J. Dillon is out today and could be contributing to that 18-point deficit they're suffering. But the game of the day, the Red River Shootout, number 19 Texas has a 14-point lead over number 7 Oklahoma, 38-24. Kyler Murray just a couple minutes ago fumbled deep in his own territory. Texas recovered, and a few plays later they were in for a touchdown. So Texas is looking to come away with a statement victory, and the first of which for relatively new head coach Tom Herman in his short tenure in Austin.
Well, before we take a break and get you set for the start of the second half, it's not often that Neil and I are both on the air and live together, as a lot of our time is spent on Generals Game Day, and that's in a pre-recorded segment for the broadcast each week. So we don't get to talk about playoff series that happen to develop while we're in between when we record it and when we actually are live on the air. And so I want to turn our attention briefly to Major League Baseball, as we're both big baseball fans. And Neil, the postseason is super exciting. And thus far in the AL side, Houston leading Cleveland 1-0. Boston leading New York 1-0. Who do you see coming out of those two divisional series? We'll start first on the American League side.
I think it's going to be Houston and Boston. I think Houston's pitching is going to be too much for the Indians to handle. I love the Indians lineup. I love the Astros lineup too. But you have Verlander and Garrett Cole. Dallas Keuchel and others. I mean, that pitching staff is phenomenal in Houston. Justin Verlander is an absolute superstar. Only went 5 2/3, I think, yesterday, Andy, but he was in complete command of all his pitches. Future Hall of Famer. I love seeing him on the mound. And the Red Sox, I mean, the best lineup in baseball. And phenomenal pitching as well, keeping the Yankees' bats under control. I have to think, though, the Red Sox had the best record in the American League. I do see the Astros as a slight favorite to represent the American League in the World Series.
And on the NL side, it seems like it's fairly clear-cut now coming out of the NLDS, unless one of the teams that is down 2-0 can pull an amazing comeback. Los Angeles right now leading Atlanta 2-0 with Game 3 coming your way on Sunday evening. And on the other side of the bracket, in the National League Division Series, Milwaukee leading Colorado 2-0. The series shifts to Colorado. That game Sunday at 4:37 p.m. Is it fair to say that we should expect Milwaukee and the Los Angeles Dodgers to be in the NLCS by the time we talk next week?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm sure the Rockies and Braves and their fans are disappointed to see them in such a deficit and see their bats relatively quiet through 2 games apiece. But I think both organizations have to feel good about the year and feel good about the future. The Braves were just hoping to be competitive this year, and they ended up winning their division, one of the youngest teams in baseball, and they're going to be successful for years to come. And the Rockies have to feel really good that they finally have found a pitcher, Kyle Freeland, who can handle and be an ace at in the Mile High City. But the Dodgers, I mean, they look sensational. It seems like they can put an ace out every time they take the field, with Ryu dominating Game 1, Kershaw dominating Game 2, maybe Buehler in Game 3. We'll see who they pitched on Sunday evening. But they look good. And then I can't wait to see a matchup between the Dodgers aces and that lineup of Moustakas, Kane, Scope, Yelich, and others in Milwaukee. The Brewers have made some moves to try to win their division this year and maybe compete for a World Series, and all those moves have paid off. That World Series, the deadline move for Moustakas has immediately paid dividends, as he had a walk-off hit in the first game of the NLDS series.
Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the halftime here at Jobson Field. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
Global warming is here. The effects may seem slight now, but in a few decades,
they could be massive. Heat waves, floods, and food shortages. What can we do? We can join together, because when many unite as one,
we can achieve anything.
Together, we're powerful. Find out how we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Bridgewater College. We've got the second half kickoff underway. The Eagles going left to right and sparking a big return right here on the opening kickoff is number 19, Chad Jones. Chad Jones all the way for a touchdown, it looks like. Excuse me, it's number 10, Alex Galloway, the guy you've talked about all year, Neil Schaefer, taking it all the way for a touchdown, but there is a flag on the play, holding on the Eagles. A little late for us getting back into the action, but a hold back by the 30-yard line, and so a big return is negated.
Wow, well, Alex Galloway certainly showed the weapon that he is, but man, the Eagles continue to shoot themselves in their feet. That's the way you want to set the tone to open the second half, and now they're going to be back in their own territory with worse than what they would have been if it was a touchback, up against a formidable defense. They've certainly got to regroup, and I would regroup, Andy, by giving the ball to Demetrius Yalopoulos.
Well, it's heating up here at Bridgewater College, 84 degrees
Literally
on the thermometer.
figuratively.
And certainly we're having a little bit of technology issues as the technology heats up. Maybe a little hotter here in the press box as Jay Scroggins goes under center. He'll flip it back to Yalopoulos. Yalopoulos running off right tackle, trying to get to the outside, unable to do so. Trip Callahan, Davis Waldrop, and Matt Dodson in to make the stop for the Generals.
number 25, Davis Waldrop, and number 31, Matt Dodson, there to make the stop for Washington Lee. Again, 3 on the play. Second down and 7.
Second down and 7 after that 3-yard gain. Scroggins from the shotgun. 3 eligible receivers to the left side of the formation. Actually, let me correct myself. 2 to either side of the formation with a tight end and flanker to the right side. Scroggins looks left, long pass towards the sideline. It's complete on the outside. He'll have a first down and more. Can't see who it was from here, but we'll tell you that momentarily. Looks like it's Trey Stevens, the number 3 on the outside, the speedy junior, and he'll have a first down for Bridgewater.
Stevens came into the game only 3 receptions on the year, Andy, but averaging over for 25 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. Certainly a weapon, and the Eagles, I think, want to get the passing game going a little bit because they have a lot of talent in their receiving core.
Scroggins from the shotgun. He'll hand to Yalopus running up the middle, and Yalopus will gain about 3 yards before he's met by a wall of generals at about the 43-yard line.
Number 69, Phil Davis for Washington Lee. Again, 2 on the play.
2 on the play. All right, officially 3 will give him second down and 7 upcoming. Scroggins under center this time. Wing back to the right side of the formation, a split in that direction as well. That's the offense's wide side. Cross motion, and they'll run the speed sweep towards the left side, or excuse me, towards the right side of the formation. And trying to get to the outside was number 13, Brendan Metairie. And Metairie will have first down yardage and more. He's into Washington and Lee territory, knocked out of bounds at the 46-yard line. So a first down for the Eagles. Anything that you're seeing there, Neil?
I see the Eagles trying to leverage their speed a little bit. I do think they have a speed advantage. We've seen the ball go to Yelopus, to some of their speedy receivers, and then to Metairie right there, trying to get to the edge a little bit and use that speed advantage that I think they have.
Generals show blitz on first down. Scroggins steps up into the pocket. Now he'll look to run, trying to get to the outside. He's brought down by Will Corey, but not before he can pick up 9 yards on the carry.
That was that breakdown in the pocket, but I think the over pursuit by the Generals on the rush there. They rushed a little too high. There was no one staying home in the middle of the field in the line of scrimmage, and Scroggins was able to get what was a relatively easy 9 yards.
Second down and 1 upcoming for the Eagles. Bridgewater continuing to shift around. Looks like Metairie at the helm right now as he operates from the shotgun. He'll take the snap, and it's a straight quarterback run. Metairie into the open field as he gets across the 30, knocked out of bounds by Davis Waldrop after he picks up big yardage down to the Washington and Lee 21-yard line. So the Eagles effectively mixing it up on this play calling series and have found themselves just outside of the red zone.
I think this is exactly what they had to do coming out of halftime. Show the Generals some looks that they were not getting in the first half. Maybe a little more Metairie, who has a background as a quarterback, though he's much more of a runner, and keep the Generals off balance a little bit.
Scroggins under center. He'll turn, hands to Stevens, running the right side speed sweep. Stevens breaks one tackle but can't get away from the rest of the Generals as Sam Murphy flying from that inside linebacker position to drop him for a loss of 1.
Number 90, Jay Roberts for Washington Lee.
Quickly to the line of scrimmage is Bridgewater as the Generals went with mass substitutions. Scroggins drops back to pass. He's flushed out of the pocket to his left, looking deep for the corner of the end zone, and this one's thrown out of bounds. Unable to find his receiver, Trey Stevens. There is a penalty flag on the play.
I think he had a little room to scramble to the left if he wanted to. Maybe it was worth taking that chance to the end zone, but especially because the penalty is going to be on the Generals' defense.
The penalty for an illegal substitution, too many men on the field. As you may have heard us describe, the Generals were trying to go with the mass substitution, get new defensive linemen and linebackers into the ball game to match the personnel of the Eagles, and unable to do it in a timely fashion. So that's a 5-yard penalty. So the Bridgewater College Eagles now in the red zone at the Washington and Lee 18-yard line on the near side hash. So the offense's wide side is the left side. Scroggins from the shotgun, drops back to pass, lofts it for the corner of the end zone. Jump ball, and Dakota Schrader able to pull it down as he outleaps Matt Dodson, and the Eagles find the end zone for the first time today.
Schrader, a big target, standing, I believe, about 6'2". And the Eagles wanted to come out aggressive, get that passing game established. We talked about how the Generals actually outpassed the Eagles in the first half, and it was certainly a priority here in the second half. The Eagles, I like the different rhythms they show in their offense. They get to the line of scrimmage quickly. Sometimes they take their time. A lot of inconsistency, but intentionally so, to try to keep the defense off balance.
So the Eagles on the field to go for two. Bunch receiver set to the left side, and it looks like they'll run Philly, Philly, the famous play from the Super Bowl, and they successfully pull it off. The handoff goes to Metairie after the direct snap to Yalopoulos, and Metairie finds Scroggins in the end zone for the touchdown, for the 2-point conversion. So just like the Eagles were able to pull it off in the Super Bowl, this version of the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles to the Bridgewater College Eagles.
I'm sure you liked seeing that one, Andy, bringing back some memories of your Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Well, it certainly worked for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, and it works this time for the Bridgewater College Eagles, as now, after that 2-point conversion, the score stands Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 14. Neil, if you're head coach Clark for the Eagles, do you try to go with the onside kick now that you've got some potential momentum slanted your way?
I don't think I would quite yet. I want to get my defense out there and allow them to get a rhythm as well, hopefully deeper in the Generals' territory. They should be aggressive as well. I mean, they know, for the most part, what's coming at them. The Generals are not likely to show as many different looks as the Eagles' offense gives. But no, I wouldn't throw an onside kick out there quite yet. Let the defense, your offense has made a statement, now let your defense do the same thing.
So Logan Weiss tees it up, and he'll hit a high end-over-end kick that'll back up Alex Wirtz into the end zone. He'll take a knee there, and so the Generals offense will come out and take the field at the 25-yard line. We're in the third quarter, 10:36 to play. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 14. Thanks for joining us. Happy to be with you today alongside Neil Schaefer. I am Andy McEnroe. Whether you're listening on WLUR, WLUR All Access, or on the WLUR web stream, happy to be with you, I should say. I mentioned it's getting hot, and so I'm sweating profusely up here in the box. 85 degrees on the Weather Channel app as Drew Richardson takes the field for the Generals. He'll hand to Josh Brees. Brees will run off the left guard's hip, and after gaining 2 yards, is met by a wall of Eagles. Leading the charge that time was number 2, Dustin Green, the sophomore. Gain of, I guess they'll give him 3, so 2nd down and 7. Neil, you're being quiet over there, very pensive.
Hey, very pensive.
Richardson from the shotgun, hands to Brees again. Brees has to spin immediately in the backfield, nowhere to go, and he'll lose, call it 4 yards, and it will set up a 3rd down and 14.
I think each team is trying to really establish itself and reestablish what they do best. I think Bridgewater, that's some creativity and get it to a lot, spread the ball around on offense. Generals, that's Josh Brees. But they need to be more than just one-dimensional, and they need to try to give that Bridgewater defense different looks because they're eating up those runs up the middle.
3rd down and 14. The Generals go to the air. Deep throw, Richardson for Montgomery Owen, battling with the defensive back on that side, Luke Barnum, and the battle goes the way of the Eagles as Barnum's able to knock it away from Montgomery Owen.
So the Eagles defense got their statement as well. That was a relatively quick 3 and out. They're down by 16 points now, and they have to feel really good actually about where things stand, all things considered, especially with how successful they were in many different phases of their offense on the last drive and feeling good about getting the ball back in what should be good field position.
So for the first time today, we see Bo Sheridan out there for the Generals. The snap's a good one. He'll get a line drive punt away that'll bounce at the 45. Takes a Generals roll, fielded by Womack on the roll, and he'll go out of bounds after a 5-yard return at about the 40-yard line.
That may have been number 42, Amos Owashile.
So the Generals unable to get anything really going to start their first offensive possession of the second half.
It was the Generals' defense that led to a lot of points in the first half. Short fields for the Generals' offense, or scoring a touchdown themselves, and I think they're going to have to be similarly opportunistic in this second half.
So Scroggins brings his offense out onto the field. Generals showing blitz on this 1st and 10. Scroggins back to pass. He's flushed out of the pocket, wings it while he's being tackled out of bounds. There is a receiver in the area. He was not out of the pocket per se, but I guess they're saying Dakota Schrader close enough, and so it will not be intentional grounding.
Yeah, he wanted to get the ball to Schrader, his favorite target, best receiver on the team, and as you said, close enough in the area. Officials don't want to have to call intentional grounding if they don't really have to, and that certainly wasn't egregious enough.
So 2nd down and 10 for the Eagles. Back to that wildcat look with Metairie in the shotgun. He'll fake the handoff, now looks to run it himself, and Metairie, running off right tackle, is chopped down after a gain of 1 by number 54, Andrew Frailer.
32, Will Corey, and number 54, Andrew Frailer, combined to make the stop for Washington.
Neil, any thoughts there?
I think the Generals, they have to get used to seeing Metairie in the second half. They allowed a good run on the last drive, but we're ready for that there. It's the exact same play the Eagles ran last time and ready for that off-tackle run.
3rd down and 9 upcoming for the Eagles. Scroggins from the shotgun, drops back to pass, looks over the middle. It's complete. He's got his man. It's number 19, Chad Jones, on the reception. Correction, it looks like, not sure who it is given the slanted numbers, but we'll give it to Chad Jones. Scroggins from the gun, this time turns, hands to his tailback, Yalopoulos, and Yalopoulos will gain 2 on the carry to bring up a 2nd down and 8.
Going back to that pass play, the Eagles were just able to find a little space in the defense, and that pass was thrown a little high, but I think it was in a perfect spot because there were a couple of defenders between the receiver and the quarterback. A little lower, might have been deflected or picked off, but it was in perfect position for the receiver to jump and make a somewhat entertaining catch.
2nd down and 8 upcoming. Scroggins under center. Turns, hands on the speed sweep to Galloway. Galloway trying to get to the outside. That time well played by the Generals. Davis Waldrop on the stop for the blue and white.
Generals did a great job moving laterally there. They weren't fooled by that play. They were ready for it and ready to run to and meet him at the sideline for no gain, it appears, from up here.
No gain on the play, officially spotted now. Apologize for my delayed calls here. Trying to find a way to keep our equipment cool, so taping pieces of paper to the window in front of me to create shade. 3rd down and 8 upcoming. The things you do in Division III broadcasting. Handoff on the speed sweep goes to the speedy number 87, Deron Robertson. And Robertson will only pick up 4, and it's decision time for head coach Clark as they're in Generals territory, but about 4 yards shy of a 1st down.
I'd go for it. I think you don't have a lot to lose here. Your defense showed a lot of good things on the last drive, and I think they've showed enough on offense where he has to feel at least somewhat comfortable that they can get those 4 yards. I mean, inside the Generals' 35-yard line, no reason not to go for it.
4th down and 4, officially 6:18 to play in the 3rd quarter. Back to passes Scroggins. He's got a man over the middle. It's complete. And it's number 19, Chad Jones, this time for sure, with a 1st down across the 25, down to the 22-yard line.
And I couldn't tell if that was a blown assignment or if maybe the ref kind of picked the Generals defender, but Jones was there, 10 yards clear of, or maybe 5 yards clear of any Generals defender, wide open. Scroggins was just able to flip that pass out there as he backpedaled. not a good look for the Generals defense on that play.
1st and 10 for the Eagles. 4 wide receivers to the left side of the formation. Handoff goes up quarterback keeper going up the middle is Scroggins. Scroggins will gain a yard on the carry.
Number 13, Brendan Mattery, the ball.
Correction, it was Mattery at quarterback.
Tom Haven, number 40, Sam Murphy for Wash Lee.
2nd down and 9 upcoming.
Play. It'll bring up a 2nd down and 9.
4 wide receiver look this time, 2 to either side of the formation. Scroggins from the shotgun. Yalopus in the backfield to his right. Now Scroggins is flushed to the left. Fires that way as well as he had a comeback route on the left side looking for number 19, Chad Jones. Incomplete as he ran out of real estate on that sideline.
Well, I think it's lucky, Andy, college football doesn't call roughing the passer the same way as the NFL, because the Generals got a good hit on Scroggins at the end of that play just after he released the ball. But as I said, not quite like the NFL's calling it these days.
3rd down and 9 upcoming. 4:57 to play in the 3rd quarter. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 14. Scroggins from the shotgun. 3 eligible receivers to the right side of the formation. Scroggins looking that way, now looking to scramble. Makes a couple of defenders misses and lunges for the 1st down, and he's got it. He gets it by 1 yard, and so that'll be a 1st down for the Eagles on the Jay Scroggins scramble.
Scroggins is a very athletic player. I think most of his runs have been the scrambling variety, but I think when he runs, he's actually quite effective. He's a pretty fast player. If I were the Eagles, I'd go back to some of the crossing route like they showed on that 4th down pass. I think it really allows them to take advantage of their speed that they have in their wide receivers. Maybe get some separation between the across the middle of the field.
1st and 10 at the 11, so the Eagles can get a 1st down before they get a touchdown. Scroggins looking left on this 1st down play and fires it to the left side. It's incomplete high. The Generals were bringing pressure, but unable to get there.
That's not an easy pass for a quarterback at any level, especially though at a Division III level. I mean, that kind of 10-yard pass to the sidelines, you really have to be able to rifle that and be a little more decisive, because that's a very tough angle and a longer pass than it looks.
Second down and 10. Scroggins under center, hands to Yalopus. Yalopus straight up the middle for a touchdown for the Eagles as Demetrius Yalopus straight up the middle, untouched, and he's in for the score. An 12-yard touchdown run gives Bridgewater College 6 more points. And so, as you said at halftime, Neil, this is still a ball game, and the offense stays out on the field to go for 2. Scroggins, the quarterback from shotgun. He'll take the snap, hands it off to Stevens. Stevens trying to find the corner. Well played by the Generals defense. Nowhere to go, and the try is no good. So we have a 10-point ball game here in the 3rd with 4:06 to play. It's Bridgewater College 20, Washington and Lee holding a 10-point advantage with 30 points on the board. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT NOW, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
Where we are in the game sometimes.
Welcome back to Generals Football on WLUR. 4:06 to play in the 3rd quarter. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. The Eagles have continued to attack the Generals, and that time Washington and Lee's defense did bend, and they broke as Demetrius Yalopoulos a run up the middle for the score. A high end-over-end kick that Wirtz will get a chance to field this time at the 2. He'll bring it across the 15, up the middle on the 20, making moves at the 25. Wirtz fighting for yards across the 30 and gets across the 30 out to the 20-yard line. So Alex Wirtz, who came into the ball game averaging 25.3 yards per return, fighting for yards there and gets Washington and Lee its best field position of the second half.
Yeah, I think the Eagles' offense has come out here in the second half. I think they've given the ball to more players in the second half than the whole first half combined, really spreading it around, getting creative. The Generals need to equal that creativity, I think, and really also spread that ball around if they want to be successful. They're not going to win the game today, it doesn't look like, just by running the ball up the middle with Josh Brees. They need to do more.
Trey Lachlan in the ball game. He'll hand to Jimmy Johnson his first carry of the game, running the right side sweep, made famous by the likes of McKenna Johnson and others. And a gain of 2 for Jimmy Johnson on first down. That last drive by Bridgewater, 12 plays, 60 yards, took 5 minutes and 10 seconds off the clock. That's got to be the concern for the Generals, particularly coming after last week's issue with Randolph-Macon controlling the football. Lachlan, the quarterback, hands to Josh Brees, and Brees is cut down in the backfield.
Yeah, as you said, he's met in the backfield there. This Generals' offensive line has not been getting a good push at the line of scrimmage. It's been the Eagles' defensive line that's been controlling it most of the day between the tackles. Generals have had a couple big plays, but beyond that, their rushing attack hasn't done a whole lot. They need to find a way to get a sustained drive going.
Under 3 minutes to play in the third quarter. 3rd and 10 for the Generals. Lachlan back to pass, throws over the middle into double coverage, and somehow it's hauled in by Jimmy Johnson. He appears to be 1 yard shy of the first down marker. Great.
The Generals, they've got a little bit of passing game when they need it. Ideally, though, they don't want to be in these 3rd and longs. I think if they want to sprinkle it in a little in the early downs, that was one reason I think they were able to get a touchdown. And it looks like the Generals are going to go for it here in their own territory.
4th and about 1. Ball at the Washington and Lee 41-yard line. Lachlan hands to Brees. Brees has the first down and more as he spins through a tackle and is brought down at the 45-yard line.
And that was Josh Talon again. Didn't look like, much push either way by either of the lines. But Brees was able to find a crease, kind of cut back, and what appeared to be about a 4 or 5 yard gain.
1st and 10 upcoming for the Generals. Ball at the Washington and Lee 45-yard line. 2 minutes and 2 seconds to go in the third quarter. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. Speed option to the right side. Quick pitch to Josh Brees from Lachlan. And Brees tries to hurdle a tackler, but coming in to make the stop on the outside is the safety Matt Dang for the Eagles.
I'd love to see the Generals also increase their tempo a little bit between plays. The Eagles have been mixing it up effectively. I think the Generals could be effective too if they get some big plays. That was, not a big play, but a relatively successful one. But keep that tempo up. Don't make sure you're not careless, but, really push the tempo and try to keep tired out the Eagles defense a little bit.
Lachlan from the gun fakes the handoff to Brees, rolls to his left, throws for his tight end, and it's just out of the outward stretched arms of Reed Ostrom. Ostrom running a flag-like pattern coming from the left tight end position, and Lachlan just put it a little bit too far for him.
That was a tough play for Lachlan. He had to kind of spin away over his back shoulder, away from some pressure, and that's tough for a quarterback to do because it throws off your timing. You kind of have to reset your feet and fire the ball faster than you might have wanted to otherwise. The Eagles are, or at least on that play, did a good job bringing some pressure.
3rd and 5, ball spotted at midfield, directly in the middle of the field. Lachlan from the shotgun. He'll take the snap, hands to the first-year Josh McDonald running the right side sweep, and it's Josh McDonald battling for yards, and he'll have a Washington and Lee first down after being brought down by the linebacker Dushman Denny.
And I said they need to spread the ball around. It does seem like they're thinking about that a little bit. We've seen Jimmy Johnson, we've seen McDonald We're seeing Lachlan a little bit. It's good to bring these other faces in because they all have a little bit different. Even if you run the same plays, we heard Coach earlier this season saying all the runners show us something a little bit different, and that's important to have that variation, even if you're running similar plays.
Under a minute to go in the third quarter. Speed option to the left side on this first down and 10 carry. Pitches to Josh Brees. Brees trying to get to the sideline, unable to do so, spins out of bounds at about the 40. There is a flag on the play thrown at the 40. It looks like they're going to get Charlie Vudoris on the hold for the Generals.
Yeah, Generals look resigned to that penalty there. That offense looks like they're walking backwards, knowing that play is coming back. Good decision there on that pitch. He had the space, Brees did, down the sideline. It's just unfortunate there that Generals have to do it over again.
So a 10-yard penalty after the hold on Vudoris, who was out there at the wide receiver position. Now Montgomery Owen checks back into the ball game. He'll line up at the left split end. Generals going with 2 split ends on this first down and call it about 17, 18 maybe. Lachlan from the shotgun. 40 seconds to play in the third quarter. Lachlan will take the snap, hands to Josh Brees. Brees tries to run off the left tackle's hip. Unable to get much yardage, maybe 1 or 2, but not much more than that.
He had a slight hole there, but it was tough running over the left side there. Eagles once again quick to seal the holes. A long, 2nd and 19 here. The Generals have to take some time and think about what play they might want to call.
It looks like Washington and Lee is going to be content to go to the fourth quarter as the clock under 10 seconds. The play clock has not started yet, so Washington and Lee can take this all the way to the fourth quarter with a 10-point lead here at Bridgewater. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. We'll take a timeout and be back with fourth quarter action. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT now, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
And welcome back live to Bridgewater College, Jobson Field for fourth quarter action on WLUR. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. The Generals really didn't get much going, Neil, in that third quarter, as it was Bridgewater College with 2 touchdowns and 1 2-point conversion. What does Washington and Lee need to do here in the fourth quarter?
They need to find a way to establish a drive. I mean, they've done that fairly well in this drive, but this holding penalty is threatening what was looking like it was going to be a good drive. But they're only in their second drive of the second half, I think, on offense. And we're at the beginning of the fourth quarter. The Eagles have dominated possession. They need to find a way to hold the ball a little longer, eat up some yardage and find some success running the ball. I think they need to do a little more of that speed option. Which they've had some success on this drive doing.
A 4-minute time of possession swing in that third quarter. The Generals were up at halftime by about 2 minutes. Now it's the Eagles up by about 2 minutes. Lachlan on the option. He's going to be cut down in the backfield. He was trying to run the option to the right side with Sherman, his pitch man, and he'll lose 2 yards as the Bridgewater College defense just busting through the seams to make the stop.
Yeah, I'd be a good offensive coordinator, Andy, calling for that option and then seeing the Generals lose a couple yards, and now we're in about a third and I don't even know, 3rd and 15 situation?
I think it may be a little bit long, 3rd and 19, and now the officials are getting together. Personal foul penalty, block below the waist on Washington and Lee. So what was a bad third down about to get a lot worse, as it looks like from the signal that head coach Clark for the Eagles is going to accept the penalty and send the Generals a walking. And why not? It's about field position, Neil, and if you can force the Generals on a 3-and-out on this set of downs and then flip the field with, a not-so-great punt, it's great strategy on his part.
So I'm having trouble doing this math here right now, Andy. Are we at 2nd and 34?
I have to see. They haven't put the box down on the field yet, so I wasn't quite sure where they spotted the ball initially, but it is going to be about second. The ball is going to be spotted at the 32-yard line, and the Generals have to get to the Eagles' 34-yard line.
Yeah, as you said, this is about field position. So the Generals need to just find a way to get some yardage and hopefully give their punter a little more breathing room.
Lachlan will hand to Sherman. Sherman running straight up the middle. He'll get back across the 35 and out to the Washington and Lee 42-yard line. As I noted, the Generals that have to get to the Bridgewater 34-yard line for a first down. So that'll bring up third down after that second down run by Colin Sherman.
So about 3rd and 24 here, and the Generals did get themselves a little space if they do need to put on fourth down, and I wouldn't be shy about going back to a similar play. You just need to get a little yardage. Try to pin the Eagles back deep as you can in their territory. This is not where Generals are going to go for it on fourth down on this drive.
Lachlan hands to Sherman. Sherman will run right up the middle once again, and Sherman spins forward out across the 45 to the Washington and Lee 47-yard line. So with 13:50 to play in the fourth quarter, the Generals will send the punting team out on the field, Bo Sheridan, to kick this one away for the blue and white.
Yeah, I think all things considered, Andy, with what they were looking at on 2nd and 34, this is not the worst outcome for this drive. I mean, Sherman showed some good toughness and able to, some good power and able to get some yardage there. And the Generals need a great punt here.
Sheridan gets the punt away, a high spiraling kick that Womack unsmartly fields inside the 5, but makes a couple of Generals miss. He's on his feet, still running at the 35, 40, 45, 50 at midfield. All he's got to do is beat Sheridan, and Sheridan somehow pushes him out of bounds inside the 20. There is a late flag on the play. It looks like it was behind the return, potentially for unsportsmanlike activities. And there's a flag back at the Bridgewater College 16-yard line. That may be for a hold, Neil, so this one may be coming back. So the second great return by the Eagles special teams may be coming back today.
Well, I'll pause for the penalty before I comment, but the Eagles will obviously be very disappointed if that's coming back, because that's a game changer right there.
The officials getting together to sort out the two penalties. The Generals defense taking the field back by the original flag. Let's see if our crowd mic can pick up the official.
We have a personal foul, unnecessary roughness on the return team. That penalty is declined. We have a holding on the return team. After this to the goal.
So the penalties both on Bridgewater put Bridgewater College back deep in their own territory. A hold at about the Bridgewater College 17-yard line negates a very nice punt return by Devonta Womack, the senior punt returner, who caught it inside the 5, Neil, which is something you tell your players never catch it inside the 10. He catches it inside the 5 and then takes it all the way back to the Washington and Lee 19, but got some help along the way from that hold.
Yeah, and though he, had he let that go, had that gone at the end zone, that hold would never have happened. They'd have an extra, almost 15 yards of field position. The Generals are in the position they needed to be in after that punt, and that is deep in Eagles territory. And this defense needs to stay disciplined, because I think the Eagles are going to come out once again with some creative looks to their speedy players. 1st and 10
for Bridgewater at the Bridgewater College 8-yard line. Generals with 4 down linemen. Eagles going right to left here in quarter number 4. 13:03 to play in regulation, with Washington and Lee having a 10-point lead. Scroggins, one pump, now goes deep down the right side, has a man wide open. It's Dakota Schrader, as Schrader beat Patrick Ryan, and he hauls it in but falls down as he was catching it. Otherwise, that was 6 points on the board. But Dakota Schrader, a nice over-the-shoulder catch for the Eagles.
And Scroggins, perfect pass under heat, got hit again as he was releasing that pass. Schrader's a matchup problem on the outside. Once again, he's a big receiver, their leading receiver. Generals need to limit big plays here, force the Eagles to use clock.
1st and 10 for Bridgewater at the 35-yard line. Handoff is to the deep back, Yalopus, and Yalopus, not much room to work with, picks up 2 yards on the carry. It will bring up 2nd down and 8. The Generals defense that was so stout in the first half, having trouble getting off the field here in the second half. We mentioned between the quarters that the Bridgewater College Eagles now hold the time of possession advantage. And the Eagles potentially taking a play out of the Randolph-Macon playbook from a week ago on how to beat Washington and Lee. 2nd down and 8 upcoming as Scroggins goes under center, motion behind him, and now there's a flag before the snap. It looks like, based on the line judge's signal, it will be a false start on the Eagles.
I thought the Eagles would want to come out, Andy, and try to establish that pass after such a poor showing in the first half, and they've been incredibly efficient in the second half, completing vast majority of their passes and have gone for 95 yards through the air in the second half, and they still have almost a full quarter to play. Scroggins looked like a different player between the two halves, and he wasn't able to do much against General's pressure and the tight coverage. This half has been a different story.
2nd down and 13 upcoming for Bridgewater. Single back joins Scroggins in the backfield. 3 receivers to the left side of the formation. A single split end to the right side. Scroggins back to pass. Under pressure. Flush to his left. Scrambling left. Throws towards the left sideline. It's complete. He's got his man. It's Deshaun Holmes, the first-year receiver, who will get it across the 40, brought down at the 41-yard line.
Some quarterbacks, when they start to scramble, they don't keep their eyes upfield and they just take off running. Scroggins, though, he starts to scramble. The defenders have to keep in mind that he's still looking to pass if he can. He can keep plays alive, but then he still kind of creates an option for himself, run or pass. And the defenders have to remember that and have to stay disciplined in their coverage.
Here's a formation for you. 3rd down and 4. 4 receivers to the right side of the formation. A trips-like bunch, and then a single split end even further to the right side. It's Scroggins looking that way, and he's got his man. It's complete. It's Brendan Mattery across midfield into Washington and Lee territory, hauling in the hitch route at the 48-yard line.
That was a good catch by Mattery. He had to go up and get that one. But a sure-handed receiver there making a good catch and doing just what his quarterback needed to do, move the chains on 3rd down.
1st and 10 for Bridgewater, 10:53 to play in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20, and the Eagles are on the march. 1st and 10 for the Eagles in Washington and Lee territory at the 48-yard line, just inside the far side hash. Offense's wide side is the left side. They'll run the speed sweep that direction. Handoff is to Galloway, and Galloway cuts it inside. He's met by Thomas Freeland and tripped up, but Galloway will have near first down yardage. As you mentioned, Neil, Galloway, just a very, very fast receiver, can get involved in this offense in so many different ways. Scroggins under center. Same set as before. They'll fake the speed sweep. Handoff is to Yalopus. Yalopus cuts it back, found a hole on the backside, and we'll have another Bridgewater College first down. Just a simple off-tackle run to the right where he saw a backside cut. Some zone blocking that time by Bridgewater, Neil, and it's been very effective against the Washington and Lee defensive line.
Yeah, as you said, Andy, that's a relatively simple run, but the good blocking and that snap motion that we talked about in the first half, that was able to do enough to kind of soften the defense, make them think a little bit, just disrupt maybe a split second of their timing, allow Yallop to get downfield, use his burst for great yardage there.
Scroggins from the shotgun hands it off to Yalopus, running off left tackle this time, and he's met by a number of generals. Sam Murphy was there, Davis Waldrop as well, and Oak Mize, the defensive end for the Generals. Clock continues to tick down, 9:25 to play in regulation. Generals up by 10, but have really not done anything in the second half. It was 30-6 at halftime, and the second half has been all Bridgewater. The Eagles coming out with the Wildcat formation as Brendan Mattery at quarterback. He's joined in the backfield by Yalopus, who's offset to his left. Mattery will take the snap, runs left, and he's going to be met by a wall of defenders.
I think the Generals know that Mattery likes those off-tackle runs, Andy. And the Eagles moved the ball so well the first couple drives, the first half, and the Generals had that bend, don't break mentality and limited them to just a couple field goals, kind of the opposite in the second half. The Eagles had good drives but scored touchdowns. We'll have to see what the Generals are able to do in a really pivotal moment of this game, deep in their own territory.
3rd down and 5, ball at the Washington and Lee 21-yard line, even set with 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Scroggins calling out the signals. Generals showing blitz, 4 down linemen. Scroggins will take the snap. Generals bring 1 extra defender. Throwing for the corner of the end zone is Scroggins, up for grabs for number 19, Chad Jones, and it's broken up by the Generals' number 31, Matt Dodson, who battled him step for step.
Yeah, Dodson, a very experienced cornerback. And I think up to this point, Eagles had converted all, if not just about all, their third down conversions in this half after going 0 for 4 in the second half. So the Generals, huge stop there on third down, and the Eagles have a decision to make. Down by 10, clock ticking, time winding down in the fourth quarter, not literally ticking, I guess, at the moment. But they have a decision to make on what they want to do here on fourth down.
Injured Eagle is Chad Jones, still down on the field, back where he went up for the football, just behind, I should say, the front pylon on the left side of the field, the near side, closest to us here in the press box. As Neil mentioned, it will be 4th down and 5 upcoming. My perspective, Neil, is you've got to take the points here because it makes it a one-score game by getting the field goal with 8:12 to play, and there's still a lot of football left to play. What do you think?
I think if you're comfortable with your kicker, you kick it. It's not, a super short kick. I mean, this is nearly 40 yards. That's not a gimme by any means. But if you believe in your kicker and think he can do it, then I agree. I would kick the ball and move it down to a one possession game.
And that's exactly what it looks like head coach Mike Clark will do as he sends out Logan Wise to attempt the field goal. 2 successful attempts already on the day. This one from 38 yards. It's long enough, but it's not straight enough. No good. No good. And so a missed opportunity for the Eagles.
And that didn't look like it was ever going to be good. I mean, as soon as that was kicked, the Eagles started walking off the field. The body language said it all there, Andy, and this Generals defense, once again, coming up big on third down and getting fortunate that the Eagles weren't able to convert that kick. So now they have to use some clock. I mean, they have not been able to do that in the second half after having the ball for the majority of the first half. Can they sustain a drive? Can they spread it around to some more of their skilled players? Those are the questions that have to be answered right now for the Generals.
8:12 to play in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20 as the Generals offense takes the field. Drew Richardson is the quarterback for the blue and white, joined by Josh Brees in the backfield. It's Brees getting the handoff, spinning forward across the 25, and will have near first down yardage as he's brought down at the Washington and Lee 30.
Brees up the middle there with some success. Generals able to open up a little bit of hole for him, but Brees really doing the hard work there himself.
Richardson trying to work the clock now as he looks to the sideline for the play. Head coach Garrett LaRose delayed in giving it in as he wants to use the play clock to the advantage of the Generals as it goes under 15 seconds on the play clock. 7:38 on the game clock. 2nd down and 1 upcoming for the Generals. Sherman, the slot back on the right side. Johnson, the slot back on the left side. Handoff is to Colin Sherman running the left side sweep. Coming from the right slot back position across the formation. And he'll have a gain of 4 on the carry and a first down for the Generals.
Yeah, and most importantly, that first down. Generals can allow that ball to get reset and the clock to start again. And, I talked earlier, I like to see them pick up the tempo. Right now, they are okay just sitting back, let that clock run, and being very smart with their play calling and finding ways to get some chunk plays.
1st and 10 for the blue and white. Ball at the Washington and Lee 33-yard line. Richardson from the shotgun. Pistol-like formation with Brees behind him. Brees gets the handoff, tries to spin off a left tackle, and is unable to gain much yardage, maybe 1 yard on the carry. Muhammad Khan, the defensive end for the Eagles, on the stop. They'll officially give Brees a gain of 1, so 2nd down and 9 upcoming with 6:33 to play in the contest, and the Generals holding a 10-point advantage in their second ODAC game of the season. Richardson from the shotgun. Eagles crowd the line of scrimmage. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees looking for the cutback lane as he started left, tried to bounce right, gets across the 35 out to the 37-yard line. And so it will be a 3rd and 5, and the Eagles will burn a timeout. Neil, is that smart play calling here by the Eagles coaching staff to start using the timeouts this early with still 6 minutes and 14 seconds to play in the fourth quarter?
I don't think there's any reason to call a timeout quite yet. I mean, that's the first one, I believe, of the second half. There's plenty of time, and the field position is good enough for them at the moment, where if the Generals were to punt, the Eagles would be in good position with a short enough field where I don't think they need the timeout quite yet.
6:14 to play in regulation. Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. As Neil mentioned, the Eagles now have 2 timeouts remaining. The Generals still with all 3 timeouts, and coming out of the timeout, it will be 3rd and 5 for the Generals. The ball just inside the far side hash. Washington and Lee going left to right here in quarter number 4. For those of you listening on the radio or on the internet, thanks for joining us on WLUR 91.5 FM Lexington, or online, WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. 3rd and 5 for Washington and Lee as Drew Richardson leads his squad back out onto the field. The Generals will send 3 eligible receivers to the right side of the formation. That's the offense's wide side. Both of their slot backs, Jimmy Johnson and Colin Sherman, are lined up that way. Josh Brees is offset to the right as well. Jimmy Johnson comes in deep motion, extended pitch motion. They look to run the reverse. Not fooled are the Eagles as Colin Sherman, trying to run the counter reverse, will get across the 40 to the Washington and Lee to the Bridgewater 41-yard line. Appears to be about 2 or 3 yards shy of the first down marker. And so it will most definitely be the punting team for the Generals. There is a flag, though, on the play. Holding on Washington and Lee is the initial signal. Now we'll have to see if Mike Clark declines it or not for Bridgewater.
I would decline it. Right now you want the downs, and you don't want to give the Generals another chance to run the ball and use up more time.
And it looks like he will decline it. So here comes Bo Sheridan and the punting team for the Generals. Coming into today's contest, Bo was averaging 38.1 yards per kick. He's done fairly well thus far today. The Eagles crowding the line of scrimmage. Wide splits for the Generals in this punt formation this year. And so Sheridan awaits the snap. It's a good snap. The Eagles do not rush, and Sheridan hits a line drive kick that'll bounce at the 20, takes a high hop. Womack fields it at a 10, makes one move working towards the left sideline, still on his feet as he tries to work towards the Bridgewater bench and is eventually ridden out of bounds by Adam Harder, the first-year linebacker for the Generals. So good coverage that time for Washington and Lee, after Womack last time took it all the way to the house, but it was eventually called back due to a Bridgewater College hold. But now, Neil, it's basically the final exam for the Generals defense, who here in the second half has not been able to slow down the Eagles. And it's really only a missed field goal that has stopped the Eagles from being a perfect 3-for-3 on possessions and points. Scroggins under center. 2 wing backs, 2 tight ends. He'll send Galloway across the formation, handoff. It's to Yalopoulos, and Yalopoulos running up the middle from the 25 out to about the 31-yard line, so a gain of 6 for the sophomore running back.
And wide open holes opened up by the Eagles offensive line. They're going to move quick now with limited time left on the clock.
Scroggins quickly receives the shotgun snap. 3-step drop out of the shotgun. Looks right, fires towards the sideline, and a bit too high for his intended receiver, Trey Stevens. So that will stop the clock with 4:58 to play in regulation, and the Generals holding a 10-point advantage.
Stevens wasn't quite open, but worth going for. Throwaway in this position is fine. I talked about the no need to use that timeout at 6:14 left in the game, but they do need to start thinking about the clock when they're on offense and be judicious when they can. They're going to be passing the ball a lot, and the clock, may stop as it did on those incompletions.
Scroggins from the shotgun, 3 eligible receivers to the wide side of the field. That's the right side for the offense. He'll take the snap and looks left. It's blocked at the line of scrimmage, though. Getting his big paw on it was number 90, Jay Roberts, the junior at the defensive end position. Knew he couldn't get to the quarterback, Neil, so he got that big paw up, knocks down the ball, and that'll bring up 4th down and 5 for Bridgewater, and the offense stays out on the field.
Well, this could be the ball game, Andy. I mean, there's still some time left, but if they don't convert here, give the Generals the ball on Eagles' 30-yard line. could be the end of the game for the Eagles.
4 down linemen for the Generals. Shotgun formation with 3 receivers to the right for the Eagles. Crossing route, it's complete to Chad Jones. Jones will have the first down as he makes a couple of defenders miss to get across the 35, but will be stacked up short of the 40 at the 37-yard line. So a first down, a big 4th down conversion for Bridgewater.
The Eagles converted 4th down early in this game on a similar crossing route, just going opposite direction on the field. The Generals have had a tough time defending those passes.
Scroggins back to pass, looks right, and this one's picked off. He was looking for his receiver who was in between the zone layers for the Generals, and Patrick Ryan, not fooled, jumps up, snags the ball as he was looking for Chad Jones, the sophomore, who he's had a great connection with today, but that time the ball a bit underthrown, and Patrick Ryan picks it off, and the Generals' offense will take over.
And the sigh of relief, I think, is breathed all over Generals country, because the Eagles' offense this second half has been exceptional, really actually impressive. And Generals, once again, they find a way to take advantage of an opportunity in a tough situation. They did that in the first half. And they did it again. But there's still plenty of time for the Eagles to score 10 points. The Generals need to get a first down in this drive.
4:30 to play in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. The officials stop the action on the field. It looks like they're going to reset the play clock. Generals come out in a 2 tight end formation. 2 slot backs, 1 to either side of the formation. Josh Brees directly behind Drew Richardson, who remains in the ball game at quarterback. Now both slot backs will line up on the right side of the formation. They motion Johnson across the formation and hand off to Josh Brees, running up the middle, and Brees will gallop forward for a gain of about 5. Brings up a 2nd down and 5. And, Neil, I would expect we're going to see a heavy dose of Josh Brees on this drive.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is where the workhorses earn their money. And Josh Brees is an All-American back. He is for a reason. He has that talent. And the Generals are going to lean on him here without a doubt.
Injury timeout on the field. The down General looks to be number 60, Will Jackson, the first year that has found himself in the starting lineup at the guard position. Head trainer Josh Williamson out on the field attending to him. That gives us a chance to remind you at the conclusion of today's contest, we will have our final stats breakdown for you, plus our Washington and Lee University Store Player of the Game. So stay tuned for that following the conclusion of this one on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. Alongside Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe. Neil, this drive is so important for Washington and Lee. They have to move the chains and keep that clock rolling.
Yeah, if they're able to get a first down here, then that's going to force the Eagles to start burning more timeouts. And if they burn those timeouts, then obviously their offensive drives are going to get a lot more difficult, because they still need 2 offensive possessions to perhaps end this comeback, complete this comeback, I should say. And if the Generals can get this first down, that's going to go a long way in ending this game.
2nd down and 5. The Generals will run the speed option to the right side. Richardson pitches to Brees, and Brees steps on the out-of-bounds line, so that'll stop the clock. And you can hear the coaches next to us upset about that. Brees tried to stay in bounds, but spun back in and stepped out of bounds, so that'll stop the clock momentarily. Well, at least right now the clock continues to move with 3:47.
3rd down and 3.
3rd and 3 now after that 2-yard run on the right side speed option. The Generals go back to a base-like formation, 2 tight ends, 2 slot backs. Josh Brees offset to Richardson's left. Richardson motions Sherman across the formation, hands to Colin Sherman, and Sherman, running the left side sweep, will dance forward for a gain of 2, about 1 yard shy of a first down. So it will bring up 4th down and 1. Timeout called by Bridgewater College with 3:24 left in regulation. We'll take a timeout as well. Stay with us. This is Generals football on WLUR.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
And welcome back live to Jobson Field on the campus of Bridgewater College. 3:24 to play in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. The consensus from the Brain Trust up here, which is the Lobsher family and Neil and myself, is the Generals should go for it on fourth down. Why is that, Neil?
4th and 1, I think they can gain the 1 yard. They've achieved positive yardage on most plays today, the vast majority of their running plays. And if they get this first down, the Eagles are almost certainly going to use their final timeout. And then the Generals can really milk that clock even more. Only 3:24 left in this game when the clock starts.
2 tight end set, 2 slot backs. Josh Brees directly behind Drew Richardson. Richardson in the shotgun about 4 yards deep. Movement once again when Jimmy Johnson went in motion on the Bridgewater defensive line's front, or I should say on the front 7 of the Bridgewater. It looks like they touched the offensive line. It will be encroachment. 5-yard penalty and a first down for Washington and Lee. So that's been a successful play all day. Whether it's a no play on 3 or not, at least Drew Richardson's hard snap count plus Jimmy Johnson going in motion has produced now 4 penalties today. 3 of those going against Bridgewater, 1 against Washington and Lee where they called a false start that I don't think either of us saw. But nonetheless, it's 1st and 10 for the Generals at the 38-yard line.
And the Eagles did the work for the Generals there. Now they just need to run the ball. The Eagles will call a timeout, but then, what's left for their 2 offensive possessions that they still need to find.
Richardson hands to Josh Brees, and Brees running up the middle has his helmet ripped off, so he'll have to come out of the ball game. No gain on the carry. So Josh McDonald will come in at slot back, and that'll move Colin Sherman to the option back position. No gain, 2nd down and 10 upcoming, 3:15 to play in regulation now, with the Generals still holding a 10-point advantage by the score of 30-20. Washington and Lee taking its time to get to the line of scrimmage. 5 on the play clock as Richardson takes the snap and runs the left side speed option. He'll keep it himself. Has a first down and more as he gets across the 30 all the way down to the Bridgewater College 24-yard line. A nice run by the junior quarterback who's seen an increase in playing time today. Instead of splitting series evenly, it's been the Drew Richardson show for the most part.
And that was a great read by Richardson. He had the option back there. Potential pitch out there, but he had a lane, and he identified that lane, and he kind of burst through it. You saw kind of an extra bit of burst for that first down for the Generals. That was his best run of the day, and I think that was one of the better-looking Generals offensive plays today.
Josh Brees back into the ball game. He's got 145 yards rushing on the game. This handoff, though, goes to Josh McDonald running the left side speed sweep, and it's McDonald running forward for a gain of 5 yards to set up a 2nd down and 5.
Number 13, Josh McDonald, ball carrier for Generals.
So McDonald...
I'm surprised haven't called the last time out yet, Andy.
Bridgewater does have 1 timeout remaining, 1:55 to play in regulation. I guess if you're head coach Mike Clark, you're trying to say, how can we stop them, force a field goal attempt, and save that timeout for offense? So there is no other stoppage outside of that timeout or a general going out of bounds or an incomplete pass. But right now the play clock at 5 as Richardson finally sets the offense. He'll take the snap, hands to Josh Brees. Brees running straight up the middle, not looking to make the cut. 2 hands on the football all the way for the sophomore running back, and he appears to be 2 yards shy of a first down, and now it looks like Bridgewater College will use that last timeout with 1:25 to play in the 4th quarter. We'll keep it right here alongside Neil Schaefer. I am Andy McEnroe. Glad you've stayed with us. What looked to be a Washington and Lee controlled contest at halftime with a 30-6 lead has turned into a very competitive contest as Bridgewater College scoring 14 points here in the second half to Washington and Lee 0, making it 30-20. And this drive here in the 4th quarter, Neil, really the first sustained offensive drive for Washington and Lee.
And sustained drive with the help of the Eagles, though. I mean, it's the Eagles that were able to, that converted that first down for the Generals with the offside penalty. And I do think that timeout should have been taken 2 minutes ago. I mean, it wouldn't have maybe made much difference at the end, but the Generals aren't going to pass the ball. So that, they aren't going to stop the clock on their own absent a penalty or perhaps a fumble. In that case, they should have taken it 2 minutes ago and then as aggressive as possible, get to the ball carrier and really rip at that ball and try to force a turnover. And now that they're, we got 1 minute, 25 seconds left, and there's little to no chance for the Eagles' comeback.
3rd and 2. Richardson will receive the snap, runs the left side speed option. Richardson tries to keep it. The Eagles trying to strip the football, and it looks like Richardson will be about a half a yard shy of the first down marker. He needed to get to the 15. They're going to spot him just in front of the 16-yard line. And so 4th and less than 1, and it looks like Coach LaRose will keep the offense out there as we are now under a minute to play in the contest. 20 seconds on the play clock and ticking down. And I suspect, Neil, that Coach LaRose is going to run this down, take a timeout, and then think about what the best course of action is. Points on the board end the contest for the most part, or at least make it a lot more challenging to score what would be 13 points in under 37.7 seconds as the Washington Lee Generals take a timeout with 37.7 seconds left. But what's your read?
I think they got to keep the ball in Richardson's hands. You don't want to risk some sort of faulty handoff or toss. Keep the ball in the few hands as possible, as few exchanges as possible. Keep it in Richardson's hands. Try to get the first down if they can, and just let that clock start up again, and celebrate a good, hard-fought win. Though with some learning, some lessons still to be taken from this matchup today.
Well, I do want to take a moment with the break in the action today to thank the Bridgewater College Sports Information Department for allowing us to do this remote analyst setup for the first time on the road, as Neil Schaefer, as I mentioned, not with me here at Bridgewater College, but in the film room, breaking down the film as it happens real time. And so it's been great to be with Neil, and we couldn't have done it without Bridgewater's help. We attempted to leverage their camera, ultimately couldn't figure that one out, so we brought our own camera and appreciate them allowing us to set it up here in the press box. 4th and 1 upcoming for the Generals. Richardson takes the snap, hands to Brees. Brees plunges forward, and it looks like he's going to get down to the Bridgewater College 13-yard line, so that's enough for a first down, and that should be the ball game, folks, as once they start the play clock should outpace the game clock, and it looks like it will. And so that's going to be all she wrote for this one. Washington and Lee, despite not scoring any points in the second half, will come away from Bridgewater College victorious for the first time since 2010, defeating the Bridgewater College Eagles by the score of 30-20. We'll take a 2-minute timeout and be back to wrap this one up for you. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR and WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting.
Start saving.
Okay, Jimmy, we just need to pick up some light bulbs.
Which ones are we supposed to buy, Grandpa?
Well, we can save money by using an energy-saving incandescent CFL or LED.
How about this bulb?
We need to replace a 60-watt bulb. That one is 800 lumens, so it should do the trick.
Lumens?
Lumens tell us how bright the light is. The more lumens, the brighter the bulb.
You know, Grandpa, you're pretty bright yourself.
Lumens, the new way to shop for light. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
What would happen if you didn't follow the established path? Would you feel scared or proud? Could you explain that helping the people of Peru improve their own community would also have an effect on your own? Would you rather make your own way or spend a lifetime saying, what if? Life is calling. How far will you go? Peace Corps. To find out more, call 1-800-424-8580 or go to peacecorps.gov.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Deb. I thought you were the radon test guys.
The who test guys?
Didn't you see the papers Sunday? The Surgeon General issued another lung cancer warning.
Oh, like the cigarette warning?
Yeah. They're saying we have to get our houses tested for radon.
I don't smell any radon in my house.
That's because radon is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that seeps into your house from underground.
Does this story have a happy ending?
Yeah. You'll be a lot happier once you get your house tested.
Learn more. Visit the EPA at epa.gov/radon. That's epa.gov/radon.
I don't need to start saving. I'm years from retirement.
Floods don't happen here.
This chest pain is just a little indigestion.
This isn't a flood zone, right?
People have an amazing ability to deny obvious risks, like flooding. Yet floods happen in all 50 states. Fortunately, it's easy to find out your risk. Just visit floodsmart.gov or call 1-888-RAIN-022. Brought to you by the National Flood Insurance Program.
Okay, Jimmy.
I couldn't even imagine myself without a cigarette. I was like up to 2 packs a day.
1-800-QUIT now.
I just decided to call and see what it was about and see how they could help. They're there for you. I got stressed out and I picked up a cigarette, so I called the counselor and they told me that, it happens. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Nobody's perfect. Even if you quit, they're still there if you need them. If you're really serious about quitting, call.
Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW, a public service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and this station.
And welcome back one final time to the campus of Bridgewater College, Dobson Field for Generals football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. I am Andy McEnroe. Joining me today is Neil Schaefer. And Neil, a good win for the Generals. I won't call it a great win, but a good win. The Generals up 30-6 at halftime. The defense does allow 14 points in the second half for a total of 20 points. But ultimately, the name of the game is winning, and Washington and Lee with a victory today, advancing on the season to 3-1 overall and evening their ODAC mark at 1-1.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Andy. A win is a win at the end of the day. It's still a one in the win column. But there is some learning that can be taken from this game. I mean, the Generals won with big plays today. That big Brees run where he made 48 yards out of a 5-yard loss, the Sherman 67-yard run, the 2 interceptions, timely sack by the Generals defense, and that fumble recovery for a touchdown. If one of those plays might have gone differently, I don't know if we would have been talking about a win today. But I think the Generals, they need to kind of really sit down and look at this game and see what went well, what didn't go well. But overall, hey, a win's a win, and this is not an easy place to win. As you said, Andy, they haven't won here very much in the last couple decades.
Well, it's now time we take a look at the final statistics. But before we do that, this broadcast of Washington and Lee football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington has been brought to you in part by the Washington and Lee University Store. Celebrate your favorite Generals team with a sports tee, decal, or hat. If you can think of it, we probably have it. The store is open 7 days a week and is owned and operated by W&L. All proceeds go back to the Washington and Lee community, helping to fund athletic, alumni, and student programs. Order online anytime at store.wlu.edu, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for exclusive online promotions. Go Generals! Well, it's now time we take a look at the final statistics for you. And, of course, first we'll start with total offense. Washington and Lee, 334 yards of total offense on 61 plays, compared to Bridgewater College's 341 yards of total offense on 62 plays. Certainly in the second half, Neil, it seemed like Bridgewater's offense got it into gear. 192 rushing yards, 149 passing yards for the Eagles, and they improved their conversion rate. They were 0 for on third down conversions in the first half, 3 of 10 overall for the game, and an important 2 of 2 for the Eagles in fourth down conversions in the second half. Washington and Lee on conversions, they struggled in the second half. 5 of 14 overall in third down conversions for the game. 2 of 4 on fourth down conversions. A big fourth down conversion here late in the fourth quarter that ultimately sealed the victory. In terms of time of possession, Washington and Lee 30 minutes and 44 seconds to Bridgewater's 29 minutes and 16 seconds. Any thoughts about the overall team statistics as you look at them?
Well, the number that I highlighted coming into the game today, Andy, was yards per rush. Generals, pretty low yards per rush on the season. At halftime, they were 6.7 yards per rush. They finished the game exactly 5 yards per rush. That's fine. That they did what they need to do. They got some timely runs, but that number still needs to be better if you're going to be running this rushing attack that, an offense that is 95% running. They need to do a little better with that. I'm also a little concerned by that third down efficiency, Andy. 5 of 14. They did better than their opponent in that department, but 5 of 14 is not quite good enough. However, they had an exceptional turnover margin, 3-0. And that was the difference in the game today.
Taking a look at the individual statistics, the Generals were led by Josh Brees, 35 carries for a net rushing of 150 yards. No touchdowns on the day, but averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Colin Sherman, 7 carries for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh McDonald, 3 carries for 22 yards. Drew Richardson, 4 carries for 15 yards. Drew Richardson passing, 2 for 4, 49 yards, and 1 touchdown strike. That was to Reed Ostrom, 1 catch, 33 yards, and 1 touchdown. Montgomery Owen, 1 catch for 16 yards. Jimmy Johnson, 1 catch in double coverage for 9 yards. For Bridgewater College on offense, Demetrius Yalopoulos, 13 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown, averaged 7.4 yards per carry. Brendan Metairie, 7 carries for 29 yards. Jay Scroggins, 6 carries for 27 yards. Jay Scroggins was also 14 of 26 throwing the football, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a total yardage of 149 yards. His favorite receiver was Chad Jones, who hauled in 5 catches for 38 yards. Dakota Schrader had 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Trey Stevens with 2 catches for 16 yards. Alex Galloway, 1 catch for 18 yards. Taking a look at the offensive performance of both teams today, Neil, what stands out for you? Well, we may have lost Neil there as he...
Can you hear me, Andy?
I can hear you now. Are you back?
Oh, good. I'm back, Andy. Well, I think Josh Brees' performance stands out, and that's in part because he had 35 carries. The next highest was Colin Sherman with 7. Josh Brees has the bell cow status, but I think he's going to need a little support. Maybe he probably can't carry the ball 35 times per game without wearing out by the end of the year. And then Demetrius Yalopoulos, he had only 6 carries in the second half, 6 carries for about, I think, 25 yards. Generals were able to bottle him up fairly well after he rushed for... I believe it was 7 carries for 71 yards in the first half. He's an explosive player. Just Generals were able to find some adjustments to defend him in the second half.
Well, on the defensive side for Washington, at least, Sam Murphy led the way with 8 tackles, 6 unassisted, 2 assisted. Davis Waldrop with 6 tackles. Thomas Freeland with 5 tackles. Andrew Frailer with 5 tackles as well. Patrick Ryan with an interception. Patrick Ryan also recovered a fumble and returned it 37 yards for a touchdown. Defensively for Bridgewater, Rashawn Myers, 13 tackles on the day, 2 of those tackles for losses. Deshmon Denny, 12 tackles. Matt Dang, 10 tackles. And Muhammad Khan with 6 tackles. It's now time for our Washington and Lee University Store players of the game. I'll start first with you, Neil.
My part of the game has to be Patrick Ryan. I think the defense was huge today, and the big plays are what the Generals needed to win the game today, both offensively and defensively. But Ryan had 2 big plays. He had the interception at the end of the game, effectively ending the last gasp comeback attempt for the Eagles, and then his fumble recovery for a touchdown was one of the big plays that spurred that 36 halftime lead. And, of course, 4 solo tackles as well shouldn't be overlooked, but he was exceptional all day for the Generals.
My players of the game go to Josh Brees and Colin Sherman, both individuals passing milestones today. With Josh Brees first, with his performance today, has moved into 8th place all-time in the school rushing ranks. And Josh Brees is only a sophomore, folks, so get used to hearing that name and being excited about what he can bring to the Washington & Lee program. And a tip of the cap as well to Colin Sherman, who surpassed 1,000 career yards today with his 83 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, he had a great game last season against the Eagles where he had a career high of 159 yards. Did not meet that today, but 2 key scores, 1 big open field run. And so my 2 Washington & Lee University Store players of the game go to Josh Brees and Colin Sherman. Neil, any final thoughts on the performance today for Washington & Lee and what fans should look forward to going forward with the Generals?
You know, I think this is a smart, disciplined football team, and I think they're always entertaining, and I think, you know, they're worth watching, worth supporting, and I think that's what makes our job also a lot of fun, Andy, because you see players like Josh Brees, Colin Sherman, Richardson Laughlin, you know, Patrick Ryan, Corey, Freeland, all these players who make these big plays for the Generals. They're a lot of fun to watch. You know, another win today. And back in the right track in the ODAC. You know, as we mentioned in the game day pregame show, they lost their conference opener last year, but ended up winning the conference. They're going to look to repeat this year, and this was a step in the right direction.
Well, that's going to do it for us here today. Next week, Washington & Lee returns home to take on Emory and Henry. Kickoff time for that is 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Jeremy Franklin will jump behind the play-by-play microphone and have the call of that one for you. Of course, you'll hear Neil and I on Generals Game Day. Bridgewater College returns to action next week as they host Hampton-Sydney. Once again, your final score from Bridgewater College at Jobson Field. Washington & Lee 30, Bridgewater 20. Special thanks to Anthony Wong for spinning the dials and sending us out across the miles. For Neil Schaefer, I am Andy McEnroe, wishing you a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Global warming is here. The effects may seem slight now, but in a few decades,
they could be massive. Heat waves, floods, and food shortages. What can we do? We can join together. Because when many unite as one,
we can achieve anything.
Together, we're powerful. Find out how we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.